Chapter 161. C-161. A man like the wind. On the Flame Mountain, there are wide ravines surrounded by red magma flowing. The place is filled with boiling high temperatures, making those who are in it feel unbearably scorching. The black smoke billowing around was surging with heat. The testers who came here were so smoked that they could hardly open their eyes. They were gray-headed and had their tongues sticking out from the heat, looking as embarrassed as a dog. What the hell is this place so hot? Yi Junlin moved forward almost non-stop. When he was about to stop, he started rolling the dice, and then continued to plow the road seamlessly. The whole operation was smooth. However, the environment here is too harsh. The monks in the Qi training realm are simply suffering here. Occasionally, they have to be careful about the bursts of flames spurting out from the cracks in the ground under their feet. It is really difficult to guard against them. Hey, there's a crystal treasure chest. On the grid where Yi Junlin happened to step, there was a treasure box with a crystal luster. When he opened it, a card floated out with a few lines of fonts written on it. Just shout back, and your path will be clear from now on. Seeing this, Yi Junlin didn't hesitate at all. He pointed forward and shouted with wide eyes, "Retreat! Retreat! Retreat!" The sound seemed to contain magical power. The path that was originally filled with black smoke and red flames suddenly became silent and took on a new look. Even the sunken traps, the kind that emitted steaming smoke, filled up automatically at a speed visible to the naked eye, and even those monster-like statues exploded into fly ash. Sure enough, as the card said, this road will be smooth. Yi Junlin strode along the road, feeling refreshed and like a spring breeze. Very good. At this time, a burly middle-aged man reached out to wipe the sweat from his forehead, gritted his teeth and continued to move forward. Most of the clothes he wore were scorched black. His face was gray, and he shed tears due to the black smoke. Give me 6. Give me 6. You're paralyzed, so just give me a point. Looking at the side of the dice that turned out, there was only 1 point. Li Wuji's mentality was about to collapse, and he cursed. Looking at the long distance from the edge of the volcano's landscape, he felt that time was passing extremely long. This damn place is so tortuous. Hey, I really envy senior brother Hong for being able to leave here so quickly. I think there is a 80% chance that the inheritance of Immortal Island will be him. Li Wuji rolled the dice again, and came to the designated grid in despair. Looking at the statue that quickly came to life in front of him, he felt a toothache. Roar! A red flame beast that looked like a ferocious tiger with a single horn on its forehead flew toward Li Wuji in front of him. It opened its mouth with thick fangs, like a jungle of swords and halberds. What are you barking at? Li Wuji yelled angrily, and struck hard with his war hammer. The war hammer was wrapped with terrifying lightning, emitting a blue light, and exploded on the head of the red flame beast. Kai la la! The ferocious head was swallowed up by the lightning, and it quickly spread to the whole body along the head. The whole body of the red flame beast was twitching wildly, and wisps of charred smoke were emitted. I won't kill you if I hammer you, Li Wuji said fiercely. After he hammered it hard for a few times, the red flame beast finally stopped moving and turned into little stars and dissipated. Call! Li Wuji exhaled heavily and looked at the domineering and powerful thunder warhammer in his hand. He didn't know whether to cry or laugh. He is a swordsman after all, but here he is forced to use a hammer. Really just playing with a hammer? No, it would be a shame if I gave up at the first level. Just hold back and treat it as a test. After all, everyone is like this. We all suffer together. Li Wuji comforted himself. After finishing speaking, he was about to take action when he caught a glimpse of a familiar figure in the distance from the corner of his eye. The young man walked with an indescribable smoothness. His body was clean and not stained with any dust. The expression on his face was calm and relaxed, as if he was here for sightseeing. There was no trace of embarrassment, just calmness and calmness. Compared with other trialists who endure hardships and become disgraced, their painting style is completely different. Master! Li Wuji stared hard, and after seeing the man's appearance clearly, he said in shock. Yi Junlin turned his head when he heard the voice and said with an unhappy look on his face, Who are you? Why do you want to become a disciple indiscriminately? Li Wuji was stunned, his expression uglier than crying. Master, I am your third disciple. This time it was Yi Junlin's turn to be surprised. He squinted his eyes and took a closer look. Oh, it's true. Haha, my teacher just made a joke to you. Don't take it to heart. In fact, I recognized you at the first sight. Yi Junlin was shameless and found an excuse to cover up his embarrassment. I'm just telling you, how could Master not recognize me? Li Wuji nodded and said doubtfully, Master, why is the road you are on so smooth? It doesn't seem to have even the slightest trace of fireworks. In his eyes, the road where Yi Junlin was located was flat and smooth, without any black smoke, and the scene of gushing anger was in sharp contrast to other roads with harsh environments. Out of curiosity, Li Wuji asked this question. Because. Yi Junlin looked thoughtful, then slowly said, we are different. Li Wuji, it's strange. Just say it properly. What's going on with this inexplicable tone? Do you understand? Yi Junlin said seriously. Li Wuji looked like he had a toothache. Maybe you understand. Okay, keep going, I'll wait for you at the finish line. Yi Junlin strode forward. Li Wuji looked at the receding figure, and the corners of his mouth twitched a few times. Just as he was about to roll the dice, he suddenly remembered something, slapped his head, turned his head suddenly, and stared, fuck. At this time, Li Wuji suddenly remembered that the silver-haired young man seemed to be able to ignore the grid when he walked. Others could only walk 6 grids at most at a time, but he had already walked countless 6 grids. Is this normal? In Li Wuji's mind, a voice with an accent, the kind that also came with an echo, we are different. A few seconds later, looking at the warhammer in his hand, Li Wuji threw it on the ground in anger, and said angrily, I'm playing with a hammer. Yi Junlin, who had a smooth journey, soon left the Huayan mountain and came into view, a vast grassland. Well, the environment here is much more comfortable. Yi Junlin came to the corresponding grid, and a large green leaf was floating in front of him, like a small boat. Is this a flying prop? Yi Junlin stepped on it and injected mana. The leaf trembled slightly, then emitted a green glow, and moved forward rapidly with a whoosh. The sound of the wind filled my ears, and I felt the spring breeze blowing. Looking at this grassland, people felt a kind of heartfelt joy. Shua. After crossing 500 grids, the leaf quickly withered and dissipated, and Yi Junlin also fell to the ground leisurely. Good guy, it turns out to have durability. Yi Junlin smiled and continued to shake the dice, moving forward with a score of 60. Arriving at the location, a diamond treasure chest was glittering. Yi Junlin rubbed his hands impatiently and walked forward. It looks like there is a big treasure inside. Opening the diamond treasure chest, 2 blazing white streams flew out, lingering on Yi Junlin's boots, emitting brilliant brilliance. At the same time, a line of prompting text appeared, congratulations, now you can run freely, ignoring any grid, until you run out of this prairie. Okay, now you don't even have to shake the dice. Yi Junlin took a slight step and felt a mysterious force burst out, pushing him forward. Swoosh. The airflow on both sides was whistling, and the surrounding scenery was changing wildly, at a speed that was outrageous. Yi Junlin ran freely on the prairie, his thick silver-white hair dancing wildly, humming a light tune in his mouth. Running with the wind, freedom is the direction. Not far away, 2 figures are competing with each other. Hong Chenny narrowed her beautiful phoenix eyes and looked at the mysterious figure riding a white horse with a black robe and hood. This guy is very fast. Judging by intuition, the man felt very familiar, as if he had seen him somewhere before. Chen Xiao pulled the reins, drove the white horse under his crotch, and ran on the vast grassland. Humph, no one can surpass me. Chen Xiao glanced at the red figure from the corner of his eye, and felt very annoyed when he thought of the loss he suffered at the hands of this woman before. And now, there are only the 2 of them around, and the desire to win is naturally the strongest. At this time, the white horse raised its head and let out a piercing neigh, and then its body turned into dots of starlight and disappeared into the air. What? At this time, Chen Xiao almost fell to the ground and stood firm in time. Haha, your horse is gone. Hong Chenny was overjoyed. I will take the lead in this first round. Damn it. Chen Xiao looked ugly. Boom boom. Suddenly, a strong wind blew. A blurry figure passed him at lightning speed, raising dust all over the sky, and ran straight to the end of the road. Hong Chenny was stunned and stared blankly. Wait, did something just pass by? And it looks a little familiar. Is it the guy named Yi? Impossible, even if he set out just now, I guess he hasn't even walked out of the first map. Hong Chenny said confidently. Just after he finished speaking, the little black dot in front of him that was about to disappear suddenly stopped and turned back. Zhao Hong, so you are here. Yi Junlin kept running on the spot and said with a smile. Boom. Hong Chenny's head was like being struck by thunder, his brain was buzzing, and his lips trembled as he said, Master, why are you? Can't you see? The master is running. Okay, I won't say any more, I'll keep going, come on. I'll wait for you at the finish line. Yi Junlin said this, turned around and ran away. Hong Chenyi's eyes twitched, and his heart was mixed with mixed feelings. He just put down his bold words, but in the blink of an eye, he was slapped in the face. It's really. Chen Xiao was even more shocked, and he stood there like a wooden man, looking at the disappearing back, and felt incredible. This Yi Junlin, why can he be so fast here? Just like the wind. The two looked at each other, and then lowered their heads tacitly, shaking the dice and continued to move forward. I don't know why, the vigorous fighting spirit in my heart just now inexplicably disappeared. Instead, there was a faint sadness. $window. _Taboola equals window. _Taboola. Push mode, thumbs feed 01, container, Taboola below article thumbnail, 300 times 250 feet, placement, below article thumbnail 300 times 250 feet, target _type, mix. Chapter 162. C162 What's your attitude? Swish swish. The surrounding air flow roared wildly and the wind roared in his ears. Yi Junlin took the lead at an incredible speed and ran straight out of the prairie. In the next few maps, Yi Junlin relied on his astonishing luck, sometimes riding a mount, sometimes teleporting, passing through levels as if it was a joke, and soon reached the end. Looking at the empty venue and the golden hourglass with half the time remaining, Yi Junlin couldn't help but shook his head and sighed. Hey, I should have known I should have walked slower. After saying that, he threw the dice back casually, and when it hit the ground, it happened to be another golden 60 points. Gulu. At this time, there was a gurgling sound in his stomach. Yi Junlin felt the hunger coming from his stomach and said, after running around the map for so long, it's no wonder that I'm a little hungry. It's time to reward myself with something to eat. After all, he is now in the Qi training state where his cultivation has been suppressed to the lowest level. It is normal for him to feel hungry after strenuous exercise. On the other side of the mountain, Lu Wangshu, the first island owner of Death Immortal Island, looked at the finish line shown in the pond. The expression on his face was still in shock. He was obviously stunned by this fast and fierce man. Damn it, what kind of incredible luck is this? The dice probability is 1 in 1,000, and it can be triggered at will. The entire sprint process is smooth and smooth. This is no longer God's favorite. This horse is God's biological father, right? Lu Wangshu felt complicated, but then he thought about it. When he set up this level, he took his personal luck into consideration. After all, the battle between great avenues ultimately relies on luck. Among those who stood at the top of the pyramid in ancient times, which one was not a person with great luck? And those with weak luck, or even no luck, have long been submerged in the torrent of the times, without even a splash of water. But even so, the big guys, including him, were unable to prevent the major catastrophe that year. And now, a person whose luck is even worse than theirs is born in future generations. Doesn't this mean that there is a turning point? You know, luck is also part of strength. It's just that this person's luck is indeed too good. Thinking of this, Lu Wangshu suddenly became enlightened, and his frowning eyebrows relaxed. Just when he was about to smile with relief, he suddenly seemed to see something in the next second. His expression instantly froze on his face, and the corners of his mouth twitched one after another. At this time, in that empty field, there was a curl of smoke rising. The fire was set up, and the bright flame was very strong. Yi Junlin grabbed a large handful of meat skewers that he had prepared in advance from the storage ring. He turned them over and spread the sauce on them, humming a tune briskly in his mouth. Not long after, the mouth-watering aroma of meat filled the air. Oh, Yi Junlin picked up the skewers and showed them to his mouth, eating them with gusto, his face full of enjoyment. Seeing this, Lu Wangshu's eyelids jumped. At this moment, he wanted to rush over and grab Yi Junlin's collar. He roared with a ferocious expression, "What are you doing? Tell me what you are doing. This is the top inheritance in the Kunlun world. It's a trial, can you be more serious?" However, due to his status as a senior, Lu Wangshu still tried his best to hold back. Actually, it's good to enjoy yourself in time, which shows that he has a pure heart. Lu Wangshu forced a smile, which was slightly stiff. Next, Hong Chenyi and Chen Xiao came to the finish line one after another. The two of them were as tired as dogs and sweating profusely. They looked at the silver-haired young man eating skewers leisurely in the empty field in front of them, and felt an indescribable feeling in their hearts. "Zhao Hong, are you hungry?" Yi Junlin picked up a fragrant chicken skewer and greeted enthusiastically, "Come over and eat chicken." Hong Chenyi's face looked unnatural, and she always felt that these words sounded strange. But he was indeed very tired from running and a little hungry, so the kebabs handed to him came as timely help. Thank you, master. Hong Chenny walked over and caught the fragrant skewers. The meat of the skewers was fresh, smooth and tender. It tasted delicious with the sauce and cumin. Seeing the two masters and apprentices showing off the barbecue, Chen Xiao, who was covered in a black robe and hood, his throat squirmed a few times and he swallowed hard. Out of sight, out of mind, Chen Xiao gritted his teeth and walked to the corner, sat cross-legged with his back to them, took out the bigu pill and swallowed it, secretly saying, this is the correct way to cultivate immortality. As time went by, another group of people came one after another. In the crowd, Li Wuji looked shabby and disheveled, looking like a refugee who had escaped from a disaster. Suddenly he smelled the scent of meat in the air, his eyes widened, and when he looked towards the source, he saw two familiar figures. The figure is eating barbecue. Hey, leave some for me. Li Wuji rushed forward, stretched out his hand to grab a large handful of skewers, saliva almost flowed out from the corners of his mouth, and his eyes were full of desire for food. Ada. At the moment of lightning, a standard sideways kick came, sending Li Wuji flying more than 10 meters, somersaulting several times, and then he fell heavily to the ground, eating a mouthful of sand. Li Wuji grimaced in pain and lay on the ground in a daze. Why don't you just eat a kebab? Am I familiar with you? It's rude to grab food when you come up. Yi Junlin brushed down his sleeves and snorted coldly. Li Wuji asked directly, and after holding back for a long time, he finally managed to say, Master, I am your third disciple, why don't you recognize me? Yi Junlin was stunned, and looked at Hong Chenny inquiringly, who nodded helplessly. Case solved. Yi Junlin pretended to cough dryly a few times, and hurried forward to help the third apprentice up, with an awkward smile, sorry, you have changed a lot. It's okay, I'm used to it. Li Wuji smiled bitterly, pointed his finger forward, and asked in a rather polite and cautious tone, Master, can I eat now? Yi Junlin blinked, yes. Li Wuji rushed over and grabbed a handful of skewers as if he had been pardoned, and ate them voraciously, with excited tears flashing in the corners of his eyes. Yi Junlin stood by and said with emotion, Xiao Li, if you come later, the master will be full, but don't worry, the rest will be given to you. Li Wuji paused in his action of eating the skewers, raised his face that was uglier than crying, Master, you know how to comfort people. Then, as the sand in the golden hourglass was drained, it also marked the end of this level. It was obvious that more than half of the cultivators on the field were missing, and you can imagine how fierce the competition was. It is worthy of being a test by an ancient immortal. I hope I can make it through the next level. After experiencing the previous levels, Shui Wuan completely put away his contempt and said solemnly. At this time, a majestic and mellow voice sounded over the immortal island, this round of levels is over. Congratulations to the successful trialists. The first place winner will be baptized by the immortal arts. Swish, a bright immortal light shone on Yi Junlin, and countless auspicious auras burst out from his body. Wow! Exclamations broke out in the crowd. After being baptized by this immortal art, you will be helped by God in your future cultivation. Senior Yi will soon become an immortal. Shui Wuan's eyes flashed with envy, knowing that this is something that is of great benefit to cultivators. Damn, what kind of shit luck did this guy have? Chen Xiao's eyes turned red, his face twisted, and he was almost crazy with jealousy. Hong Chenny took a deep breath, with a complicated expression. After all, he was ranked second. Looking at the silver-haired young man bathed in the fairy light, it would be a lie to say that he was not jealous. Until the dazzling fairy light dissipated, Yi Junlin's expression was calm. To be honest, for him with a golden finger, this thing is not as real as a skewer. Li Wuji asked in confusion, Master, are you not happy? Everyone was also very surprised. If this kind of benefit was placed in the outside world, it would definitely cause the legendary fairy war with the collapse of the sky and the crack of the earth and the flow of blood, but why did Senior Yi have no reaction? Haha, I'm so happy. Yi Junlin raised his hands and tried to get away with it with his poor acting skills. So perfunctory. Everyone was speechless. In the yard, Lu Wangshu looked ugly and felt as if his dignity was insulted. You know, the baptism of immortal arts just now, in the heyday of Kunlun realm, was as precious as a gift from heaven. How many descendants of immortal emperors rushed to receive the initiation, which would be of great benefit to their future practice? Who would have thought that someone would have such a perfunctory attitude? Let alone showing an exaggerated reaction, such as screaming with excitement, or crying, or rolling on the ground with joy, but you have to have a flattered reaction, right? The result is just like this. Lu Wangshu suddenly felt that his sincerity was wasted. After a while, a majestic voice sounded again above everyone's head. Now, the second round of levels is open, please go to the next location. Click. The vast mountain wall in front of them cracked, rumbling to both sides, and the dust rolled, shaking the earth. Everyone walked with trepidation, wondering what kind of weird level this time. Li Wuji was eating the last few skewers while walking. When he saw the scene in front of him, his eyes suddenly widened. This is, Hong Chenyi's scalp was a little numb, and he was in doubt. Yi Junlin, who was in the middle of the three people, stopped and his pupils reflected the dense, stick-like glowing energy bodies, and he fell into deep thought. Chapter 163. C-163 How will you die? Everyone looked at it in amazement. There were so many stick-shaped luminous energy bodies about 3 meters wide in front of them, and they all speculated about the content of this level. It's so big, I can't fit it in. A female nun with a swollen figure in cool clothes muttered. As soon as he finished speaking, countless scorching eyes were cast around him. The female cultivator realized her slip of the tongue and her cheeks turned red. At this moment, that loud bell-like voice echoed through the world and fell clearly into everyone's minds. The testers are asked to enter each projection space in an orderly manner. The longer they survive inside, the more likely they are to win. Note that only 100 places can be left in this round, and the rest of the testers will be eliminated. Hear the words. The men and women present were in an uproar. In this round of levels, only 100 people are allowed to win. All the rest will be eliminated. And it sounds like the environment is very cruel. I understand the truth, but why should it be shaped like this? It's so misleading. Li Wuji scratched his head. Yi Junlin shook his head. Hey, after all, the designer's aesthetic level is limited, we need to understand more. Lu Wangshu, who had heard everything, almost ran away and rushed out to argue. Although he was just a spirit, he still had a temper. Ignorant Junior, do you know what aesthetics is? Obviously, each of the projection spaces I created looks so big and thick. Doesn't this symbolize a man's highest aesthetics? Lu Wangshu pointed at the young figure reflected in the water and shouted emotionally. At this time, everyone entered their respective projection spaces in an orderly manner. According to the rules, you must try to survive on the projected map, and the more days you can survive, the better. Anyone outside of 100 will be eliminated directly. When Li Wuji opened his eyes, he found himself on an unfamiliar mountain with dense vegetation and numerous bushes. The sun above his head was hot and his whole body was warm. Well, where's my knife? Li Wuji subconsciously reached for the saber at his waist, but found it was empty and secretly thought something was wrong. He tried to move a few more times and found that his physical fitness was very poor and he did not feel as energetic as before. Wait, this is not my body. Li Wuji's eyes widened, he raised his hands in front of his eyes, looked at the age spots all over his arms, and realized that this body was that of an old man, without even the slightest bit of cultivation. At this time, a few lines of prompt fonts appeared in front of me. Hello, trialer, you will play an ordinary old man and survive in this mountain full of wild beasts until you die in an accident. What the hell? Li Wuji was so angry that he wanted to curse. This round of levels was too difficult. This body is very old and twilight. If compared to an old man who died at the age of 100, it would be estimated to be more than 70 years old. In this old and weak physical condition, do you still want to survive in this mountain full of wild beasts? I'm joking with Mr. Li. Under emotion, Li Wuji reached out to cover his aching chest and tried his best to adjust his breathing so that the expression on his face was not so uncomfortable. Good guy, he almost died on the spot. How can a person with such a body and bones survive in the mountains and avoid the threats of various wild beasts, as well as the dangers of hunger and illness? No wonder the rules use days as the unit of calculation. In this situation, ordinary people can usually live for 2 or 3 days. Li Wuji shook his head, as if to shake out his troubles. He calmed down, dragged his old body, broke a branch with difficulty to use as a stick, and then moved forward cautiously. The top priority is to find food and drink to stay up as long as possible. On the first day, Li Wuji was lucky. He picked a lot of barely edible fruits, found a stream to quench his thirst, and set up a small tent with branches and leaves in a clean place nearby, and built a bonfire outside. At night, Li Wuji tried to find the sense of qi in his body. He wanted to make good use of his identity as a practitioner and let this old body embark on the path of spiritual practice, but he had no choice but to give up because this body was too rubbish and was not enough conditions that support practice. He had no choice but to use basic breathing techniques to slowly improve his body. Although the effect was minimal, it was still better than nothing. After all, in this harsh environment, the stronger the physique, the better the hope of survival. The cold wind at night was biting, and Li Wuji relied on the bonfire to keep warm, struggling to survive the long night. The next day, Li Wuji started looking for food as usual, then polished his tools. With his rich skills, he hunted fish in the water and ate a meal of grilled fish. During this period, he was suspected of encountering wild animals when he went out. Knife Shu's keen intuition allowed him to avoid it far in advance. The third day, the fourth day, the fifth day, the sixth day. During the whole process, Li Wuji relied on Go to survive with great difficulty. Because this body was constantly moving, and with the blessing of the breathing method, his physical fitness was much stronger than at the beginning. I believe that as long as no accident occurs, he will basically be fine. What a big problem. On the 88th day, an accident happened. When Li Wuji was squatting in a pit to play the tuba, a poisonous snake as big as his thumb jumped out from the soil and bit him hard on his buttocks. Li Wuji knew that he had no way to survive, so he went completely crazy and grabbed the poisonous snake in turn. Bite it on its body and eventually die together. At this moment, other trialists are also undergoing the test. Most of them cannot survive 30 days, and a few can go beyond 50 days. Among them, Shui Wuan, as a top swordsman, has amazing insights and intuition. He has sought good luck and avoided disaster countless times, and even broke through the 100-day mark to continue to survive. The rain came down hard. A white-haired old man wearing a straw hat, holding a simple sharpened wooden sword, stood under a big tree. His cloudy eyes were shining brightly, his face was as calm as ever, and he had the aura of a master from this world. Shui Wuan sighed leisurely. It has been 160 days since I came to this world. I wonder if there are any fellow Taoists who have lived longer than me. Buzz. A poisonous insect flew over. Shui Wuan reacted in time and swung his wooden sword to strike quickly. The poisonous insect was instantly blown away and died on the spot. HMPH, you don't overestimate your capabilities. Shui Wuan stood with her sword in hand, her face showing pride. He planned to wait for the heavy rain to go back, because the road was muddy and slippery, and he was afraid something might happen. After all, this body is too weak. If it falls hard, it will really damage the muscles and bones. Suddenly, thick clouds gathered, and there was a heart-stopping muffled thunder. Boom! There was thunder and lightning in the sky and strong winds. Shui Wuan's eyebrows were beating sharply, always feeling that a disaster was coming. Not good. As soon as he finished speaking, a bolt of thunder pierced the sky and struck Shui Wuan instantly, leaving him scorched on the outside and tender on the inside. This story tells us that on rainy days, especially when there is thunder, do not stand under a big tree. In the yard, Lu Wangshu observed the projected world of each trialist, watching how they survived as old men in the dangerous mountains. This round will test your ability to adapt to changes and the most necessary intuitive judgment. Even if you had powerful means before, you can only play the role of an old man with no foundation in cultivation here. No matter how hard you go in the process, you will at most be better than ordinary old people are better. Lu Wangshu stroked his beard and said proudly. In his opinion, those who can survive in such harsh environment and conditions for more than 100 days are considered to be in the best group, those who have survived for more than 150 days are considered to be top-notch, and those who can survive for more than 200 days are considered to be the best. It's rare. The most important thing is that in the mountain after 200 days, all the beasts will become stronger and stronger, and the frequency of their appearance will double. It will be a hell-level challenge. What about the boy? Lu Wangshu remembered something and searched the screen curiously to see how many days Yi Junlin had lived. As a result, after checking, I found out that the other person was still outside and had not gone in. At this time, Yi Junlin looked at the luminous pillars that were dimming one after another, and knew that this group of trialists was over. Many men and women walked out of it dejectedly, telling each other what happened in the projection. Hey, I only lived for 10 days. I was bitten to death by a wild wolf. You calculated well, I burped in 2 days, guess what? I accidentally fell to death. Haha, you are not as creative as me in dying. I choked to death when a fish bone got stuck in my throat while eating fish. Everyone was having a heated discussion, as if they were competing to see who would die more miserably. Yi Junlin saw Li Wuji coming out, pulled him and asked curiously, "Tell me, how did you die?" "Ahem, I was bitten by a venomous snake and died." Li Wuji deliberately concealed the key point of playing the tuba, and then said with an inexplicable pride in his tone, "But before I died, I bit it to death in turn. How about it, am I awesome?" Ruthless man. Yi Junlin patted the middle-aged man on the shoulder. Then, seeing Shui Wuan's figure, Yi Junlin went up and asked, "How did you die?" Shui Wuan smiled bitterly, "I'm ashamed that I was struck to death by lightning. However, I lived for the 160th day." Speaking of this, Shui Wuan puffed up his chest and sounded a little proud. 160 days. Awesome. Li Wuji gave a thumbs up and said in admiration. Is this record difficult? Yi Junlin didn't understand and asked. Master, the conscience of heaven and earth is really very difficult. Li Wuji said. Shui Wuan smiled and said, Senior Yi, you haven't gone in yet, have you? Go try it and you will know. He was thinking in his heart, I am afraid you will be inferior to me this round. Yi Junlin nodded, it sounds exciting, then I'll try it. Then, he stepped into the light pillar and began to enter the projection world. See it. Lu Wangshu became most interested and showed a meaningful smile. Haha, I want to see how you will die in that world next. Chapter 164. C-164 The Difficult Road to Survival. Yi Junlin opened his eyes and saw lush vegetation and dense bushes. There was soft soil under his feet. The golden sunlight fell on the ground through the gaps between the branches and leaves, forming light spots. The air here was very fresh, and there were insects and birds singing everywhere. According to the description, he will play an old man who struggles to survive in this deep mountain forest full of dangers. Yi Junlin twisted his old waist and tried to walk a few steps. He was very familiar with this stiff and somewhat powerless feeling. Because the original body he inherited before was an old body that was about to die, but it was not as good as this one. At least he was walking much more easily now. This experience is quite real. I almost thought I had traveled through time again. Yi Junlin raised his head, squinted his eyes and looked at the big and round sun above his head, and said with emotion. By the way, I entered the projected virtual world. I wonder if my system is still there. Yi Junlin tried to call Tongzi a few times, but all he got was silence. Obviously, the system cannot interfere here. Well, I'm here to play anyway, I'll take one step at a time, and I'll earn it if I survive. Yi Junlin broke off a branch and walked in the mountains, thinking about what to do next. In his previous life, out of curiosity, he watched the show of experts surviving in the wild, and played several role-playing wilderness survival games. Now he can experience it immersively, which feels quite novel. First find food and water, make tools, build a tent, or find a suitable cave to spend the night. Yi Junlin knew that it was easy for him to talk, but it was difficult to do it, especially with such an old body, it would be more troublesome to work. Find some fruits to fill your stomach, as for meat, don't think about it for the time being. Yi Junlin knew himself, and tried to open his cloudy eyes to find out whether there were any fruits in the lush vegetation around him. At this moment, a white shadow suddenly jumped out of the bushes. Yi Junlin took a closer look and his old face showed joy. It turned out to be a fat and tender rabbit. But Yi Junlin felt that a problem had come, because he might not be able to outrun the rabbit, and he could only watch it slip away in front of him. As a result, before he could sigh, the white rabbit ran straight into a nearby tree without slowing down at all, and died under the tree. The bright red blood flowed from the rabbit's head, emitting a faint smell of blood. Yi Junlin died just like that. Yi Junlin dragged his old body and walked over, looking at the little rabbit under his feet, who was breathless and motionless, and fell into silence. More than 10 minutes later, on the piled branches, a strong flame rose, and the plucked rabbit was roasted, and soon a burst of meat fragrance was emitted. If you can put some sauce on it, it will taste better. It's a pity that it's in the wilderness. Where can I find it? Looking at the gradually cooked rabbit meat in front of him, Yi Junlin shook his head. Well, it's good to have something to eat. People should know how to be content. Roar. As soon as the voice fell, a black bear roared not far away. Frightened, Yi Junlin stood up immediately, and quickly found a big tree next to him as a cover, then stuck his head out and looked carefully. In the field of vision, there was a black bear as tall as an adult, being chased by a large group of bees. The black bear was stung so hard that it couldn't bear it and kept shouting, and ran away in panic. Damn, it's a false alarm. Yi Junlin breathed a sigh of relief. Just as he was about to look away, he saw something like a honeycomb lying on the ground where the black bear left. A few minutes later, the tender rabbit meat smeared with honey, steaming with fragrant heat, appeared in front of Yi Junlin. Yi Junlin opened his mouth and took a bite. The meat was tender and crispy. With the sweetness of honey, it tasted particularly refreshing and memorable. After finishing the rabbit meat, Yi Junlin felt that he was still not satisfied. Seeing that it was getting late, he couldn't help but worry about what to eat in the evening. Suddenly, A piercing cry sounded above his head. Before Yi Junlin could react, a bird flapped its wings and dived rapidly, and then crashed into a tree and died. Looking at the bird with feathers scattered all over the ground and a miserable death, Yi Junlin turned his head to look at the vast sky, spread his arms, and his old face was full of piety. He shouted, "Thank you for the gift of nature." In this way, after eating and drinking, Yi Junlin lay in the simple tent he had built, closed his eyes, and his expression was very peaceful. After all, as an elderly man with limited mobility, it is really tiring to find food in the deep mountains and forests. In the following few days, whenever Yi Junlin felt hungry, all kinds of small animals would come and bump into the tree to satisfy the old man's appetite. On the 8th day, Yi Junlin had nothing to do, so he wanted to exercise his body and use a sharpened branch to go to the nearby river to fish. I thought it would be a difficult and strenuous job, but as soon as he stepped on the stone in the middle, held the branch high in his hand, and concentrated on fishing, the scene on the water surface stunned him instantly. A large group of fish gathered together at some point, squeezed each other, splashed in the water, poked out their cute little heads, and waited eagerly for the old man to stab them hard. Even Yi Junlin saw that there were some crabs and prawns following the fish, with all kinds of varieties. Too much, you really went too far. Yi Junlin supported his old waist and shouted emotionally, "I'm here to experience the difficult wilderness survival, not to enjoy it. You are taking the initiative to make me fall." Half an hour later, a seafood dinner was placed on a smooth and clean stone, and the steam was fragrant. Yi Junlin sat cross-legged, sniffed it with his nose, and sighed, "Oh, it smells so good." The days passed. With his tenacious fighting spirit and master-level survival skills, Yi Junlin lived a happy life in the mountains, with all kinds of delicacies from the mountains and seas. He had no worries about eating and drinking, and he was polishing tools and building facilities suitable for living in his spare time. After some unremitting efforts, Yi Junlin finally allowed himself to live a life of food and clothing. The entire process of survival was full of hardships. People with low tiers really can't watch this. 180 days. In the mountain forest, in a relatively sheltered and sunny place, there is a spacious thatched house with various crops planted around it and arranged in an orderly manner. Creaking, the door opened, and a white-haired old man came out, with a healthy and rosy complexion. Facing the bright sunshine, he took a deep breath of fresh air, with a kind smile on his face. "I started to like this place. It feels so good to return to nature and return to nature. See this picture." Lu Wangshu, who was next door, was stunned, and the shock in his heart could no longer be described in words. In his understanding, it is a very difficult test for a frail and elderly old man to survive alone in a wilderness full of dangers. If you are not careful, you will die on the spot. How come when I come to your place, I have food, drink, and peaceful time? Why don't you take care of yourself and take care of yourself in old age? Chapter 165. C-165. The style of painting gradually becomes bizarre. In the outside field, countless stick-shaped containers were dim, and all the trial participants who came out were dejected, worried about the number of days they would survive. Among them, a tall figure in red clothes walked out, with his sleeves fluttering. His temperament was extremely outstanding, and his beautiful face was faintly unwilling. "Brother Hong," Li Wuji hurriedly came up and asked in a low voice, "How many days did you live? How did you die?" Hong Chenny exhaled heavily. "On the 206th day, I was bitten to death by a pack of wolves when I went out." Hiss. Li Wuji took a breath and raised his thumb. "Awesome, you can live that long." "What do you know, I can obviously live longer." Hong Chenny clenched his teeth, recalling all kinds of fears on the mountain, trying to be safe and steady to the extreme, but in the end he was killed by a group of beasts. The resentment in his heart turned into a flame and burned fiercely. Obviously, the situation has been revived. As long as there are no accidents, it is possible to live for a few hundred days. But strangely, after the 200th day, the wild beasts on the mountain are like mutations, very powerful, and the frequency of their appearance has become extremely high, making it hard to guard against. Hong Chenny thought that he had been careful enough, and he had made all kinds of advanced predictions in the mountains full of dangers, and he had carried forward the spirit of struggling in the magic way when he was weak and seeking good fortune and avoiding danger to the extreme. Even the frail body of the old and weak was transformed by him into a physique comparable to that of a normal adult using the secret magic method of the magic sect. It can be said that he had done everything he could. But even so, he was caught off guard by this sudden change. I still remember that at the end, he held a torch and used all his skills to deal with the wild wolf, but as the wild wolf called friends, the number of wild wolves increased, and they surrounded him and bit him to death. Thinking of this, Hong Chenny was so angry that his lips trembled and his fists clenched. In that kind of environment, it is impossible for ordinary people to survive. Absolutely impossible. I can live to this number of days, which is already the limit of the limit. I believe no one can surpass me. As his thoughts turned, Hong Chenny narrowed his eyes and looked around, as if he was looking for something. Li Wuji said, "You are looking for Master. Master has not come out yet." Hong Chenny was stunned, his expression full of surprise. From the beginning to now, Master has not come out. This. Li Wuji waved his hands and explained, "No, no, no, it's not what you think. Master went in later than all of us, so you know." "I see." Hong Chenny secretly breathed a sigh of relief, and a rare smile from the heart appeared on his face. "Then we will wait. Yi Junlin, you are so lazy and like others to serve you. Now that you have no one to rely on, you must be living a miserable life of fear and hunger, right? Just thinking about it, I am very happy." When she thought of the other party hiding here and there and working hard for food all day, Hong Chenny's mouth curled up in a sarcastic arc. Not to mention that 200 days later, the mountain will open up a hellish difficulty. At that time, even closing your eyes and sleeping will be a luxury. I really don't know how people like you who like to play badly will die in the end. Will they be bitten to death by wild beasts? Or starve to death? Or die of illness? Haha, anyway, there is always one suitable for you. At this time, Hong Chenny remained calm, wanting to see the silver-haired young man come out with a broken face. Looking forward to it. The 200th day. In the lush jungle, all animals quietly changed, their eyes gradually turned red, and they became particularly irritable. They ran as fast as the wind, whistling past, full of wildness, and constantly looking for prey. Bang! A dull sound rang out. Looking at the falling leaves and the dead rabbit under the tree, Yi Junlin, who was waiting for the rabbit as usual, opened his mouth and his old face was full of surprise. What's going on? How could a harmless, white and tender little rabbit cause such a heavy impact on the tree? If it hit his stomach hard, wouldn't he vomit several meters of blood on the spot and die? Yi Junlin was terrified when he thought about it. He grabbed the rabbit's ears and rushed home in shock. He vaguely felt that the animals in this mountain seemed to have changed in some way. Roar! Suddenly, a low tiger roar like thunder sounded, which frightened Yi Junlin so much that his hair stood up and a trace of cold sweat overflowed from his forehead. There is a tiger nearby. Yi Junlin felt incredible. In the past few days, he could wander around freely, and there were no threatening beasts within 100 meters, but now, there is a tiger near him. This is really too dangerous. The tiger's voice was getting closer and closer. Yi Junlin held the rabbit's ears, and stood still with his nerves tense. He even had goosebumps on his body. To be honest, he hadn't felt the crisis of facing death for a long time. After all, he had a golden finger outside, and his cultivation would always be higher than his opponent. With all kinds of awesome skills and magical powers, he had never lost since his debut. But in this virtual projection world, the characteristic of getting stronger when facing a strong opponent was invalid, and he couldn't suppress the tiger with his strength. Danger, 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 danger. Long time no see, the beast came to me, I think I will fall asleep forever. Realizing that he almost made a scene, Yi Junlin shook his head frantically. When he came to his senses, his eyes showed determination. What time is it and he is still sitting there waiting to die? This is definitely not what a time traveler would do. If that beast dares to come over, I will slide over and use my sharpened wooden sword to cut its belly, making it bleed to death in pain. At this time, the white-haired old man seemed to have made up his mind, with a fierce look in his eyes and holding a sharpened wooden sword, ready to take action. However, at this moment, another wild bear roared, containing strong hostility. The tiger that smelled the smell and wanted to find Yi Junlin turned his head to look at the big brown bear that emerged from the nearby bushes and provoked him. The tiger's eyes showed anger and he let out a tiger roar that was not willing to be outdone. Roar! The tiger roar was deafening, and the birds in the woods flew up in panic. The big brown bear slowly approached, with a fighting spirit in his eyes, and wanted to have a good fight, while the tiger was attracted and naturally ignored Yi Junlin outside the field. The two beasts were fighting each other, and a fierce battle was about to break out. Seeing this, Yi Junlin didn't even have the mood to watch the show, and hurriedly took today's spoils home. Along the way, there were roars of beasts from time to time, and Yi Junlin felt chilled and frightened. Damn, it turned out to be directly in hell mode, right? I think the person who made the rules is jealous of my leisurely retirement life. Yi Junlin returned home and was so scared that he quickly closed the wooden door. Although I know this is a trial, it doesn't matter if I die here, but I have a strong sense of substitution. After all, who would want to experience the taste of being bitten to death by a beast? Seeing this, Lu Wangshu then smiled with satisfaction, and reached out to stroke his beard. That's right, this is the original intention of my designing this mode. To be honest, seeing Yi Junlin living so comfortably and unrestrainedly in it, he began to doubt the mechanism of the trial. Even if he knew that this was the love that a person with great luck deserved, it made people feel very unhappy from the bottom of their hearts. It was like something that was designed with great effort and thought to be sophisticated and complex was being fiddled with like a child's toy. Seeing that Yi Junlin knew he was afraid, Lu Wangshu suddenly felt refreshed, and a great passion emerged in his heart. He straightened his back, as if he had regained his masculinity. Young man, your hard days are coming. Just as Lu Wangshu said. From the 200th day, Yi Junlin had been unable to sleep and eat well, and he couldn't sleep well at night, fearing that a beast passing by chance would rush in and tear him to pieces. On the 205th day, Yi Junlin's nerves became very fragile, and his face was not as rosy as before, as if he had aged a lot. After all, he had been worried for the past few days and it was difficult for him to rest well. As for the elderly, it would be dangerous if they did not rest well when they were old. Yi Junlin was in this situation at the moment. He might not need a wild beast to attack him, as he would be scared to death by himself. Alas, if this goes on, I will be dead soon. Yi Junlin dragged his tired body, pushed open the door and came to the yard. Looking at the familiar scene here, he suddenly felt a little sad. Grandpa, I can't live anymore. Yi Junlin sighed. Suddenly, a childish voice sounded, Grandpa. Grandpa. Yi Junlin turned his head in shock. How could there be a human voice here? And it sounded like a child. Grandpa, we are here. Looking in the direction of the voice, Yi Junlin was stunned and said with trembling lips, You are. Grandpa, don't be afraid, we will protect you. The one who spoke was a plump red gourd hanging on the vine frame. There were 6 other gourds of different colors. Are you? Yi Junlin suppressed his shock and walked over tremblingly. Looking at the 7 gourds with different colors and quite spiritual, a familiar melody from childhood sounded in his mind. Calabash brothers, 7 flowers on a vine, not afraid of wind and rain, la 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 la. Chapter 166. C-166 Calabash Baby Protects Grandpa. Yes, this familiar scene awakened Yi Junlin's childhood memories. Looking at the 7 beautiful gourds on the trellis, he felt sincerely cordial. It seems that planting some flowers and plants in the elderly is not only beneficial to physical and mental health, but also can bring surprises at critical moments. Yi Junlin stroked his white beard, and joy appeared on his old face. The next second, a sharp and loud elephant cry sounded, and there was a rustling sound in the woods, and the sound of branches being stepped on. An adult elephant came out with a heavy sense of oppression, with curved and sharp tusks, eyes full of scarlet bloodshot, heavy breathing, and a very violent temperament, as if he wanted to crush all the living things in front of him. When he saw Yi Junlin standing in the yard, the elephant excitedly rolled up his trunk, the elephant cry was deafening, and then he ran over aggressively. Dong dong dong, the heavy footsteps on the ground made a vibration like a drum. It is conceivable that if someone is unfortunate enough to be hit, they will definitely be trampled into a pool of mud. Before Yi Junlin could say anything, the 7 gourds on the vine frame reacted violently. The red gourd was very angry, You beast, don't hurt my grandfather. After that, the red gourd shook desperately and broke free from the vine branches. When it fell to the ground, it burst into a blazing light. After the light dissipated, a complete figure was revealed. It was a tall baby wearing a red cardigan, with wide leaves around his lower body, a strong body, and a small red gourd on his head. He had a childish face and bright eyes. At this moment, looking at the elephant rushing towards him, the baby with a small red gourd on his head jumped up with an angry face, landed lightly in front of the elephant, and waved his childish little hand upward with a fist. Rising Dragon Fist. Bang! In an instant, the originally aggressive elephant suddenly felt a burst of rude and unreasonable fist force, and the whole huge body suddenly flew backwards, directly up to hundreds of meters and then fell heavily, smashing into a bloody mess somewhere in the jungle. Fortunately, Yi Junlin is a powerful practitioner in the outside world. If he were really replaced by an ordinary old grandfather, he would be scared and incoherent when seeing this scene, thinking that it was a divine baby from heaven. Big boy, well done. Yi Junlin couldn't help but exclaimed, feeling very relieved. You think that old people are easy to bully, right? I still have grandchildren. Hey, Grandpa, how do you know I am the oldest? Big Boy, with a red gourd on his head and wearing a red cardigan, jumped in front of the old grandfather and asked curiously. Grandpa guessed. Yi Junlin lowered his head and touched Big Boy's head, and his old face showed a meaningful smile. Grandpa guessed it right. Big Boy showed a simple and honest smile. Suddenly, there were roars of beasts from all directions. Perhaps because of the loud noise just now, the wild beasts wandering nearby noticed this and rushed towards the cabin. Something's happening. Big Boy frowned. Grandpa, stand here and don't run around. I'll take care of the rest. Swish, Big Boy flipped over, and then his body began to become huge. When he landed on the ground with a bang, the area within 100 meters was shaking. Big Boy with a red gourd on his head stood upright, looking down at the beasts approaching one after another, and shouted angrily. Hey, you beasts, dare to come and die. After that, he raised his foot and stomped hard, crushing more than a dozen crazy bison into meat paste. Then he aimed in the right direction and kicked hard, kicking a large group of buffaloes to fly in all directions, and blood splattered high. Just as the big kid was killing, there were wolf howls in different directions of the cabin. Countless pairs of cruel and bloodthirsty eyes appeared densely in the jungle, which was very scary. Swish swish swish, groups of big gray wolves rushed out, their sharp teeth drooling, staring at the old white-haired figure. There seemed to be a voice in his mind constantly reminding, eat him, eat him. Good guy, you're coming again. Yi Junlin's eyes twitched. According to this weird setting, unless the old man can cultivate immortality, how can he deal with the sudden attack of this group of mutant beasts? Grandpa, don't be afraid, we are still here. On the vine rack, 6 gourds of different colors shook, and they fell to the ground and burst into brilliant light. One after another, small figures with baby faces and small gourds on their heads appeared, and then surrounded the white-haired old grandfather, staring at the group of big gray wolves that quickly gathered. Awoo! The howling of wolves continued. The wolves attacked in multiple directions, their bodies were as fast as the wind, and their teeth could bite through fine iron. Humph! I'm going to burn you to death. The 4th child with a green gourd on his head took a deep breath, his chest was full, and then he opened his mouth and spit out a large ball of raging flames, burning many wild wolves to howl. Swish, the 3rd child with a yellow gourd on his head rushed forward, relying on his copper head and iron arms, and his invulnerability to swords and guns, and rushed into the mutant wolf pack, punching and kicking, and his momentum was invincible. The other gourd children showed their magical powers and killed all the threatening beasts around. Half an hour later, the 2nd child with an orange gourd on his head used his clairvoyance to check the surrounding situation, and used his superb ears to listen carefully to the movement in the distance. After a while, the childish and cute face showed a relieved expression. There is no danger for the time being. Grandpa, are you okay? The eldest child became small again, ran over, looked at the stunned white-haired old grandfather, and said with concern. The air was filled with the smell of blood. Looking at the mess around him and the corpses of wild animals everywhere, Yi Junlin came back to his senses and laughed. Haha, Grandpa is fine, now I can finally have a good sleep. Grandpa, don't worry and sleep, we will guard you outside, and we will prepare whatever you want to eat in the future. The 2nd child said obediently. Then, Yi Junlin went into the house, and he was completely relaxed and slept soundly in the quilt. This was the best time he slept in the past few days, and he slept particularly sweetly. The next day, creaking, Yi Junlin pushed open the door, and the mess of yesterday had been cleaned up. There were 7 new wooden houses around, distributed near his house, protecting it like a copper wall. Well, it feels very safe. Seeing Yi Junlin walk out of the door, the eldest child was the first to summon up his strength and shouted, Grandpa is coming out. Instantly, 7 powerful gourd brothers rushed up, jumping around the white-haired old man, and affectionately called, Grandpa. Grandpa, Grandpa. Yi Junlin smiled, stroked the heads of the 7 gourd brothers in turn, and said with a kind and gratified look, Grandpa has you here, and now he can enjoy his life. In fact, what he wanted to say was, with you guys here, I can continue to lie down and do bad things. But when the words came to his lips, he chose to change his words because it was more in line with his current personality. Chapter 167. C-167 How long have you lived? In a mountain forest somewhere, a colorful tiger just killed an antelope. Just as he was about to enjoy it, he heard movement from the bushes in front of him. The ferocious tiger let out a low roar, which spread in all directions and picked up scattered fallen leaves on the ground. Grandpa, is this the tiger in front you are talking about? Yes, Grandpa was almost eaten by it before. Huh, it's so dangerous. We must express our anger for Grandpa. A white-haired old man in linen clothes came over, surrounded by 7 dolls with small gourds on their heads. They were talking nonsense. They stared at the tiger with unkind eyes, as if they were looking at a dying prey. Roar! Seeing so many humans, the tiger roared excitedly, flexed its muscles, and rushed towards them. Its shining claws could brutally tear apart trees. Beast, how dare you be so arrogant? Dawa jumped up and punched down, directly hammering the huge tiger to the ground with a trembling sound. The tiger's head was sunken and dripping with blood. Then, after 3 strokes, 5 divided by 2, a thick tiger skin was peeled off. The eldest child carefully picked up the tiger skin and presented it to Yi Junlin like a treasure. He said with a serious expression, "Grandpa, this is for you. Keep it warm when you wear it." Yi Junlin smiled and said, "My eldest grandson is interested." Next, with the escort of 7 gourd babies, Yi Junlin can be said to be traveling across the mountains without any hindrance. Although the beasts on the mountain continue to grow stronger and appear more frequently, to Yi Junlin, this is no longer an important matter. After all, Erwa's clairvoyance and ears are like a radar that can always grasp the movements on the mountain and give early warning at the slightest sign of trouble. If Yi Junlin has difficulty with his legs and feet, there will be a baby who is responsible for carrying him, and any steep rocks can be as smooth as walking on the ground. Day 250. Yi Junlin was attacked by a group of birds. The 4th child with a green gourd on his head reacted immediately, opened his mouth and sprayed out raging flames, cooking all the birds. Seeing the fragrant roasted birds all over the floor, Yi Junlin showed a pleased smile and ate them unceremoniously. Day 370. A tall building rose from the ground. Relying on Dawa's infinite strength, Yi Junlin lived in a fortress-like building with a ready-made swimming pool. The water was taken from Wuwa's spray. Yi Junlin grew stronger and swam in the swimming pool, and had a great time playing with the grandchildren. Day 500. Yi Junlin stood on the top of the mountain, looking at the undulating scenery of the mountains, with great pride in his heart. He stretched out his hand and stroked his white beard, his old face showing a bit of melancholy. He lamented that he had fought all over the mountains and was invincible, and no wild beast could threaten him. When Yi Junlin made this inhuman sigh, the 7 gourd boys behind him looked at each other and said, "Yes," in unison. 1001 days. Yi Junlin stood on the high city wall, feeling very safe. Wearing the skin of the tiger, the king of beasts, he held an iron sword made by his grandson. With deep eyes, he looked at the lush mountains and forests in the distance, seeming to recall the past's prosperous years. After all, he is able to live a good life today only because of his hard-working hands. The arduous journey behind it makes people cry. Time flies like a shuttle, and the time flies by. As Yi Junlin got older and older, he was so old that he couldn't even walk. Every time he went out for activities, he had to be carried on his back. He saw all this great land and recalled every detail of his starting point. 100 years old. In the spacious room, the bright candlelight flickered, and an old man with gray hair, a withered face and a weak face was lying on the bed. There were 7 cute-looking gourd babies surrounding them, but at this moment they all looked sad, their big eyes were filled with tears, and some of them had even begun to cry. "They are all here." Yi Junlin looked at the familiar faces around him and tremblingly stretched out his skinny palms that were already withered and covered with age spots. Dawa was the first to hold Yi Junlin's hand and burst into tears. "Grandpa. Don't leave us." "Ooh, Grandpa." Several other Calabash children cried heartbrokenly. In the eyes of Calabash children, this white-haired grandfather was their closest relative and their god. Sadness and reluctance welled up in Yi Junlin's heart. Although he knew that this was just a virtual projection world, after getting a long day and night over the years, he had already formed a deep relationship with these little guys. Now that he was leaving, he felt really sad. Thank you for accompanying me through these years. I will miss you in the real world." Hear the words. The 7 little guys cried even harder. "Grandpa, we don't want you to die." They thought the old man was talking nonsense. Yi Junlin felt that the end was approaching, his eyes became calm inexplicably, and a perfect smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Gradually, his eyes became dim and dull, and his entire old body was completely lifeless. Wow! The cries in the house were deafening. The 7 gourd kids bid farewell to their amiable, hard-working and honest grandfather forever with a heavy heart. Yi Junlin, number of days to survive. End of life. Seeing this, Lu Wangshu stood frozen on the spot like a clay sculpture. His mind was like a ball of paste, and the expressions on his face were complex and changeable, experiencing surprise, astonishment, confusion, surprise, shock, etc. He never thought that the second level would evolve to this point. Others are frightened and hiding everywhere, but now you have cultivated your moral character and have no worries about food and drink. To be honest, I can still barely accept what happened in the past 200 days, but the problem is. What the hell are those 7 gourd babies at the back? Do you want it to be so bizarre? It makes me lose face when you act like this. Lu Wangshu found that he still underestimated Yi Junline's luck, and he did not expect that he could achieve a comeback in such a desperate situation. To be able to die on that terrifying mountain, what kind of incredible feat is this? Horrible, terrible. Lu Wangshu looked at Yi Junline as if he was looking at a monster that had never existed before. In the waiting area, all the testers were talking and pointing at the only container that was still lit. Damn it, how long has it been? Why hasn't Senior Yi come out yet? No, how did he manage to survive in that kind of environment? Can an ordinary old man with no cultivation qualifications really survive for so long in a mountain full of wild beasts? Li Wuji's scalp was numb. Master, I'm afraid he's cultivating in there, right? Otherwise, how could he stay there for such a long time? Impossible. Hong Chiba directly denied it. According to the setting of that kind of character, there is absolutely no such possibility. However, he felt strange in his heart. Since that guy couldn't cultivate to immortality, how could he continue to survive in that environment? Hong Chenny knows very well that the mountains in 200 days will be a nightmare for mortals, and there is a possibility of death wherever you go. Senior Yi, how many days have you lived in there? Shui Wuan smiled bitterly, puzzled. Only through personal experience can one know how difficult it is. As for Yi Junline's delay in coming out, Shui Wuan's previous pride and complacency had long since disappeared. How is this done? At this moment, the light of the container disappeared, which meant that the trial of the last person was over. Under the gaze of everyone, the young man wearing a black robe embroidered with gold, with his hands behind his back, stepped out, his long silver-white hair shining and translucent, fluttering in the wind. Unlike other trialists who came out dejected or regretful, this young man's handsome face had an unprecedented sense of serenity and peace. Senior Yi is out. The crowd was instantly in an uproar. Chapter 168. C-168 The Boss Who Doubts Life. Hong Chenny was shocked. Why did this guy react like this after coming out? Master, you finally came out. When Li Wuji saw the silver-haired young man coming out, he couldn't wait to greet him and asked nervously, well, how many days did you live in there? How did you die in the end? This question is also what everyone wants to ask. At this time, a pair of eyes are focused on Yi Junline, full of doubts and puzzlement. Yi Junline's face is particularly calm, as if he is still immersed in the state of an old grandfather. He smiled gently at Li Wuji. I died of old age. Died of old age. Everyone was stunned when they heard this answer. Shui Wuan was the first to react. He stretched out his finger tremblingly, with an incredible look on his face. Did you die of natural causes? Hearing this, everyone's pupils suddenly shrank, looking at Yi Junline as if they were looking at a monster. In that purgatory-like environment, ordinary old people can actually die naturally. According to the statement of dying of old age just now, isn't this what ordinary people call dying of old age? Thinking of this, everyone looked at each other, and deep shock could be seen in each other's eyes. Quietly, the whole place was silent, and you could hear a pin drop. You know, this is not a question of how many days he lived. Senior Yi lived in there for decades. Hong Chenny looked dazed, and never expected this result. The gap is too outrageous. It's like a villager is still complacent about breaking through the qi training and embarking on the road of cultivation, while Lao Wang next door has quietly cultivated to become an immortal. The gap between the two sides is already a world of difference. Senior Yi, can I ask you how you did it? Is there any trick in it? Shui Wuan suppressed the shock in his heart and asked tentatively. He came to this strange man with an attitude of humbly asking for advice to seek the copy strategy. Yes, master, anyway, the second round is over, just tell us the secret of passing the level. Li Wuji couldn't help but say. Everyone pricked up their ears and listened carefully. Their curiosity was very strong, as if there were claws scratching their hearts, itching. Well, okay. Yi Junline nodded and said seriously. In fact, the secret is very simple, just relax your mind, grow some flowers and plants, and then you can get 7 magical gourds, dominate the mountains from now on, and live a leisurely retirement life. Everyone, do you want to see what you are talking about? In that case, how can you relax your mind and grow flowers and plants? Moreover, what are 7 magical gourds? Shui Wuan stepped back 2 steps, looking at Yi Junline with disbelief, and his lips moved for a while before he spit out a few words. It's that simple. Yi Junlin blinked and nodded sincerely, yes. Shui Wuan fell silent. Could this be the hidden pass trick in the map? Its purpose is to test whether the trial participants can remain calm and indifferent in desperate situations. If that's the case, then everything makes sense. Shui Wuan took a deep breath, bowed his hands, and said respectfully, Senior Yi, I've learned from you. He did this without any pretense, but with sincerity. The other party was in that terrifying mountain, but he could still take time to plant flowers and raise grass. Just this state of mind made him admire it. It turns out that we have all gone astray, alas, everyone sighed with regret. Lu Wangshu, who witnessed all this, twitched his mouth. If you insist on thinking so, then I can't help it. Looking at Yi Junlin again, Lu Wangshu's mood was extremely complicated. He was no longer able to complain about the boy's strong luck. Hey, give him a reward. Swish, a fairy light about 2 meters wide and full of fairy spirit fell on Yi Junlin. The whole person was like the fairy king Ling Chen, exuding a misty and majestic aura. Wow, the crowd was boiling immediately. Having received the blessing of 2 immortal arts in succession, Senior Yi will surely have a promising future and a smooth path to immortality. Shui Wuan said in an envious tone. Hong Chenny wanted to swear, his fists clenched tightly in his sleeves, and his heart seemed to be bleeding. The first level was like this, and the second level was also like this. Could it be that he really didn't have a chance to take this trial? Amid the exclamations around him, Yi Junlin curled his lips. Tisk, chicken ribs, it's useless. Even if his foundation was completely destroyed and his qualifications were extremely rubbish, as long as he had the golden finger that made him stronger when facing a stronger enemy, he could achieve a higher realm than any enemy with a stronger cultivation than him. So, does good or bad talent make a difference to him? Is it my illusion? Why do I feel that Senior Yi seems to be very disgusted? A male cultivator looked stunned. This was the legendary blessing of immortal arts. If it were him, he would be so happy that he would go crazy. Perhaps Senior Yi is not very good at expressing his inner joy. Others said in an uncertain tone. This detail also made Lu Wangshu's eyes widen. What's that expression on your face? Do you think the reward I gave is bad? Lu Wangshu just felt incredible. This is a blessing that even the immortal venerable would be moved by. Those who receive this blessing have a 1 in 10 chance of being promoted to the immortal emperor who will rule the world for eternity. Only he can come up with such a big deal. As a result, he was despised by a junior from the future. This made Lu Wangshu feel like he was doubting his life. Is it really my problem? No matter what, let's arrange the 3rd level, which is also the last level of this trial. This level was carefully developed by me back then. It is definitely the most innovative idea in the world. Thinking of this, Lu Wangshu's eyes lit up, like a master who was obsessed with studying mechanisms and wanted to show everyone his most proud results. At the same time, above the venue, a mellow and majestic voice slowly sounded, with an unquestionable tone, this level is over, and the trialists ranked outside the top 100 are eliminated. After speaking, with a flash of light, most of the cultivators in the crowd disappeared in an instant. They were directly teleported out of the immortal island. The rest were the 100 trialists who met the ranking requirements. Li Wuji clenched his fists, and his tough face showed excitement. Great, I'm not out. Hong Chenny glanced at him and said indifferently, Haha, it seems that you have a chance if you stay here. Li Wuji was silent. A few seconds later, he pretended to cough a few times, and said with a serious expression, the most important thing is to participate. Now, start the last level. The majestic voice like a huge bell sounded. A mysterious crack appeared in the void in front, filled with milky white light, as if something was about to overflow. Swish! Before everyone could see it carefully, the crack suddenly expanded larger and larger, as if it was propped up by some object. Swish! As the crack expanded into the shape of a cave, the milky white light inside was blazing, as if it was about to flow out slowly. Next, please enter the channel in an orderly manner. Window. _tabula equals window. _tabula. Push mode. Thumb speed 01. Container. Tabula below article thumbnail. 300 times 250 feet. Placement. Below article thumbnail 300 times 250 feet. Target _type. Mix. Chapter 169. C169. Are you playing chicken with me? Hear this. Everyone stepped into this passage with anxiety and anticipation. The young figure in the team was wearing a black robe and a hood. His face was as gloomy as rain under the brim of his hat, and his eyes were ruthless. Yi Junlin, you are lucky, but I lost the blessing of the immortal magic twice in vain. But this time, I won't lose again. As long as I win the final level, I will get the inheritance of Immortal Island. I have become extremely powerful and will easily take your life in the future. Chen Xiao gritted his teeth, his face full of hatred, hiding in the crowd like a poisonous snake in the dark, hissing and spitting out snake bites. Enter the passage. Everyone felt like the world was spinning. When they opened their eyes again, the sight in front of them shocked them. What is this? Yi Junlin looked strange. He didn't expect to see such a thing in this world. Although I have been mentally prepared for it, will it be too innovative? At this time, in front of you is a virtual panel similar to a game. You can change your face, change your head, choose your gender, and name it. This is similar to a well-known game that you were familiar with in China in your previous life. Just when everyone was confused, the majestic voice sounded again, "Welcome to the new world of projection. In order to ensure the fairness of this round of levels, everyone can set their own image to fake participate in the fight with your face to avoid retaliation after it's over. After the selection is completed, you will take a ferry boat to an island called Phuket Island. The island is divided into 6 regions. You can freely choose the landing location during the process. To equip the elixir and talismans, you must pick up or kill them. Monsters are required. As time goes by, the death energy will form a circle and gradually engulf Phuket Island. You must go to a safe area in time to survive, and fight each other during this period. The person who survives in the end will be the successor of the Immortal Island." Quote. Hear these words. Everyone was shocked and could not imagine that there would be such a novel trial level. This is really unheard of. It feels like a new world has opened up. Was that big shot from ancient times so good at playing? Yi Junlin was silent for a full 5 seconds, and then he reluctantly uttered a sentence, "Good guy, are you playing chicken with me?" It's no wonder he complained. After all, wasn't this weird setting the same chicken-eating game that was popular all over the country in his previous life? Soon, everyone started to take action, choosing their characters with great interest, matching their faces with clothes, naming them and so on. After all, when the trial officially starts, they will appear in person with the characters they designed and start a new round of brutal competition. It's worth it. Even if I return empty-handed this time, it's quite interesting to experience this novel way of playing. A male monk said with a smile. HMPH, I have to make my face more beautiful so that it can match my young lady's appearance. A female monk said coquettishly. Li Wuji looked at the characters and genders on the interface, and for some reason he felt like he was getting excited and suddenly wanted to do something sexy. In fact, he has always had a bold idea. This time I chose a female image, and then adjusted the body proportions to be strong and strong. It looks very capable and masculine. Li Wuji's idea was simple. His identity was kept secret anyway, so he might as well take this opportunity to indulge himself. With some bad taste, after setting up the character, Li Wuji looked at the blank name box and frowned. So, what should I call it? Li Wuji thought about it for a long time, and with his inner longing in mind, he solemnly wrote a few big words in the name box, the best swordsman in the world. On the other hand, Yi Junlin also designed the image of the characters entering the scene. He has a bald head, a very lean body, and wears white pants that cover his private parts. The facial features are pinched into a mean look, which is very similar to the funny face on the domestic emoticons in his previous life. It looks like he is very hateful and deserves to be beaten. As for the character's ID name, Yi Junlin was too lazy to think about it and wrote a few big words at random, invincible and so lonely. Just after everyone designed the characters, a cold and emotionless dungeon prompt sounded, "The reserve team has begun, please be ready, trialists." Aha! White light suddenly flashed. Everyone felt it was particularly dazzling. When they opened their eyes again, they saw a new scene. A magnificent, domineering and mighty ferry boat sailed in the air, penetrating countless clouds and mists, heading towards the unknown and mysterious island. On the deck, men and women gathered. Because there is a new image as a disguise, everyone seems much more relaxed and comfortable, and they can let themselves go as much as they want. Look, that woman has such unique taste. Someone stretched out his finger and said with surprise on his face. Looking in the direction, it was a tall figure with a burly body, muscles as strong as steel, and a burst of masculinity. But the most inconsistent thing was that the face was delicate, with big eyes and a small cherry mouth. Looks cute. Girl, why are your breasts so exaggerated? A man came up with a smile and joked. I want you to take care of it. Labor and management are happy. The King Kong Barbie pushed him to the ground and said viciously. Feeling the astonished looks from around her, This muscular Lolita with exaggerated breasts held her head high and walked forward majestically, feeling complacent in her heart. Haha, you all have no idea who I am, right? Haha, surnamed Lee, I didn't expect you to have this kind of hobby. Suddenly, a teasing voice sounded from the side. Li Wuji's face froze, he stopped, turned his head mechanically, and looked at the young man next to him who was leaning on the railing with his arms folded. This man had sword eyebrows and star eyes, and his appearance was dignified, with sarcasm in his eyes. Li Wuji panicked and waved his hands repeatedly, my surname is not Li, don't talk nonsense. The young man looked at the name of the first knife god in the world on the top of the head of this King Kong Barbie. The young man looked directly into Li Wuji's eyes again, and the corners of his mouth raised a playful arc, guess how I saw it? Li Wuji, damn, I met a smart guy. Is it really that obvious? Wait, this person calls himself this seat. Li Wuji calmed down and looked at the line of characters on the top of the young man's head. The name was very flamboyant and arrogant, called I am the only one. Combined with this familiar tone, Li Wuji smiled and said, Brother Hong, there is no need to be so serious when we are on the same side. The young man rolled his eyes and said disdainfully, don't try to get close to me. I didn't expect you, with your thick eyebrows and big eyes, to be quite perverted. If someone finds out your identity, guess if this is the biggest stain in your life. You, Li Wuji was struck by lightning, and his face became even more flustered, but he changed his mind and sneered a few more times, and said calmly, don't try to scare me. Where is the evidence? Just based on the name on my head. It's too arbitrary, isn't it? As long as I refuse to admit it, who can know my identity? As he said this eye-catching Barbie doll also posed in a posture of squeezing her pectoralis major, her eyes staring like copper bells, and her pretty face full of provocation. What? Bite me if you are unhappy. Hong Chenyi's eyes twitched, you are awesome. Just when Li Wuji was posing in various bodybuilding poses and letting himself go, a cry of surprise suddenly came from the crowd, damn, I've never seen such a face that deserves a beating. Swish, 99 eyes gathered in an instant, focusing on the thin figure that was much discussed. With a bald head, a layer of halo lit up under the sunlight, but the most eye-catching thing was that mean face, no matter from which angle you look at it, it's very needy. Especially the line of words on the top of the head, it actually said that Woody is so lonely, it's amazing. Hatred was instantly full, the men and women around were ready to fight, their eyes full of unkindness. That temperament, inexplicably makes me feel very familiar. Hong Chenyi seemed to think of something, and said with disgust. Li Wuji's fists were clenched and crackling, and he said angrily, who is this person, he really deserves a beating. If it weren't for the preparatory period, everyone couldn't fight, he really wanted to rush over and punch that mean face hard. At this time, feeling the unfriendly eyes around him, Yi Junlin shrugged indifferently. Alas, there is no way, I am indeed the most handsome guy. Yi Junlin stood behind the railing, looking at the vast sea of clouds, and vaguely saw the outline of a super large island, which was about to arrive over Phuket Island. In his mind, a holographic map emerged, showing that Phuket Island has 6 major areas, namely Ancient Sword Tomb, Chaotic Sword Valley, Misty Jungle, Frost Plain, Chimay Mountain, and Crescent Lake. During the period when the immortal boat completely flew over Phuket Island, the trialists must choose a specific landing location. Where should I jump later? Yi Junlin stroked his chin, a little tangled. Chapter 170, C-170 Everyone is full of goodwill. Not only Yi Junlin, but many trialists are also entangled, because where they choose to land will be directly related to the subsequent development, the convenience of running the map, etc. Is there still a choice? Li Wuji identified the location at a glance and said with a determined expression, I'll just start walking from Dao Dao Valley. As a sword cultivator, he must choose a place where there are swords, and it seems that there should be a lot of secrets and weapons about swords there. Senior Brother Hong, where do you plan to go? Li Wuji asked. Looking at this innocent lowly face, Hong Chiba rubbed the center of his eyebrows. When he thought about the big man behind him, he felt very uncomfortable. Keep it secret, hear the words. Li Wuji's smile was meaningful, Senior Brother Hong is quite cautious. Is this because you don't want to reveal your position? Are you afraid that I will kill you in advance? Hong Chenyi sneered, it's just you. Let's wait until the end. As a demonic monk who once struggled at the lowest level, he has rich survival experience, and the more he is in this moment, the more he must be careful about the people around him. Hong Chenyi prepared to land in a secret location, and then developed silently, acting according to the opportunity, constantly getting rid of competitors and seizing spoils to strengthen her own strength. You must know that in this virtual world, the techniques they have mastered in the real world cannot be used. All the techniques must be obtained from it. If they start a war with others rashly, even the boss will have no advantage. It is worth mentioning, the levels of the exercises are divided into heaven and earth, Xuanwang. As long as the complete exercise fragments are gathered together, the complete exercise can be synthesized, and it can be learned within a few seconds. The equipment is also divided into grades. From low to high, they are white inferior, green common, blue excellent, purple rare, orange epic, and gold legendary. Elixir is a medicinal elixir that has therapeutic and mana-restoring properties, and can be divided into small, medium and large. Talismans are divided into multiple functions, including invisibility, sprinting, flashing weakness, etc. In addition, there are mounts that can be ridden by trialists, and some of them have combat functions. They are also divided into junior, intermediate and advanced. As for this information, it will emerge in the minds of the trialists in order to better adapt to the rules of this round. Please note that we have entered the sky above Phuket Island. Please choose the place where you will land. I wish you good luck and become the final winner. A mechanical sound sounded in everyone's ears, which meant that the fiercest competition had begun. Fellow Taoists, see you when we land. There was a handsome young man standing on the railing, bowing his hands with a smile on his face, then spreading his arms and leaping down. During his rapid landing, a pair of dazzling silver wings appeared behind him. The flapping of the silver wings set off bursts of airflow, helping him control the direction towards his destination. Let's go too. A group of men and women looked at each other and immediately jumped down. It was obvious that they were a small group of temporary cooperation. In this case, some people will choose to stay together for warmth and get through the most difficult stage of weakness. Of course, if the time comes, they will naturally break up later. This scene fell into Hong Chenyi's eyes, and he shook his head, with a tone that was between 3 parts contempt and 1 part arrogance. Sheep only travel in groups, while ferocious beasts often walk alone. You fart. Suddenly, an unceremonious scolding sound came. The person who spoke was a tall man wearing a one-eyed patch, and there were several teammates who were traveling with him. At this time, they were all very dissatisfied with Hong Chenyi's words. Hong Chenyi's face was stunned, and then a chill climbed up, and her eyes seemed to be burning with anger. What did you just say about me? If left to the outside world, except for that guy, how many people would dare to be so presumptuous to him? What's more, these people look like minor characters at first glance. You said you were farting. If you don't accept it, hold it in. The one-eyed dragon man sneered. He is very confident in forming cliques. Anyway, the identity here is secret. Even if he really offends the boss, who will know who it is after he gets out? That's right, you still ride horses and sheep come in herds. Only ferocious beasts can walk alone. Who do you think you are? Don't let us meet you when you land. Otherwise, we will beat you every time we see you. You little brat. Several other people said viciously, their tone full of naked threats. In their view, teaming up in the early stage is the most advantageous. After all, the source of all power must be obtained with both hands. It doesn't matter who is the biggest in the outside world, as long as the fist is strong here. Ouch! Li Wuji first exclaimed, rubbed his chin and marveled. Seeing that the senior brother who usually likes to put on airs was actually angered by a few brats, I felt a sense of schadenfreude in my heart. Hee, who asked you to expose me before? Are you stupid? After all, no one here is pampering you. Hong Chenyi's face was as cold as iron, and she smiled angrily. Okay, very good, I will remember you. You'd better be alive to see me. The 6 of us will definitely survive to the end, but it's not necessarily true for a lone traveler like you. After saying this contemptuously, the one-eyed dragon man called on his companions to leap down, with bright silver wings emerging behind him. Beat to release the dense brilliance, and ride the airflow to the destination. Cuckoo. Looking at the gloomy young man, Li Wuji tried to hold back his smile, but in the end he still let out some laughter. Lao Hong, you also have today. What a laugh. Hong Chenyi scolded angrily. In the past, who would have dared to mess with him? After finding out the identity of the other party, he would find an opportunity to do it secretly. But here, even the personal image is forged. After all, the beautiful girl seen here may be behind the scenes. A rough man will minimize the possibility of retaliation afterwards. Therefore, this breath can only be swallowed. I didn't say anything. Li Wuji spread his hands. Seeing this tall King Kong Barbie with an innocent look on her pretty face, Hong Chiba was so angry that the corners of her mouth twitched. She snorted and walked away with her sleeves rolled up. Aha! The next second, he crossed the railing without hesitation, gliding rapidly in midair like a big bird, heading to the designated place in his heart. They're all gone, so I'll leave too. Li Wuji jumped up and went directly to Luandao Valley to develop. Seeing the crowd dwindling rapidly, the bald man with the funny face took action. Damn it, the more I choose, the more annoying I get, I can just jump. Yi Junlin no longer hesitated, jumped on the railing in one step, turned his back to the outside and spread out his hands, imitating the classic action of a certain game, and slowly fell backwards. The whole set of actions is originally very cool, but the problem is that the image of this funny face and bald head becomes very arrogant. Falling from an altitude of 10,000 meters, Yi Junlin felt the air rushing into his ears and the strong sense of weightlessness. Suddenly, a pair of silver wings condensed behind him, flapping and shining brightly. After successfully landing, what comes into view is a vast and boundless lake as blue as a gem. The lake is in the shape of a crescent, surrounded by lush vegetation, and the air is very fresh. Obviously, we have arrived at Crescent Lake, one of the 6 major regions. The lake is sparkling, and scattered light groups are floating on the water. They are all fragments of the skill, which need to be synthesized to obtain the complete skill. Suddenly, 5 figures swooped down quickly and landed on the lake like dragonflies touching the water. Seeing these light groups filled with skill fragments, their eyes burst out with greed, and they stepped on the water and quickly collected them. Haha, this is all mine. You want to eat shit when you step on the horse. Dare you say something rude? You will be rewarded later. The men were frantically grabbing for food like hungry wild dogs. At this time, they were racing against time to collect the fragments of the technique, trying to piece together the complete technique first, and then kill them preemptively. On the lakeside, Yi Junlin watched speechlessly, shook his head, turned and walked deep into the jungle. Purple Lightning Fist. At this moment, a middle-aged man took the lead in piecing together the technique, his eyes filled with frightening coldness, and his fist was surrounded by purple thunder, and struck away like a poisonous dragon diamond. Stab. Ah! A young man was unable to dodge and was knocked backwards by more than 10 feet. His whole body was ravaged by the terrifying purple electricity, and his muscles quickly became charred black and boiling hot steam came out. Then, his body disappeared and turned into a box suspended in the water. As long as you open the box, you can get some of the fragments he just collected. Hee, you all die. The middle-aged man was very excited and rushed towards the other 3 people. His fists were powerful in all directions, and the fist marks surrounded by purple electricity were as fast as the wind. No, out of grief and anger, 2 people were also killed by the middle-aged man and turned into boxes suspended in the water. The last person was a bearded man. There were big beads of sweat on his forehead. He seemed to be comprehending something. In the lightning and flint, his hands were fighting quickly. The round and solid earth shield condensed, blocking the middle-aged man's purple lightning fist. Bang! The 2 sides separated some distance and faced each other on the lake. Seeing that he was blocked in time, the bearded man couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. He looked at the middle-aged figure, his expression became fearless, and he sneered, "Do you still want to continue? I am a low-level earth shield skill at the Zon level. It seems that your purple lightning fist is not yet at the Zon level." The middle-aged man's face was gloomy. His purple lightning fist was only at the top level of the yellow rank, and it would not help if he continued to fight. Looking around at the remaining light groups nearby, the middle-aged man said solemnly, "Since we are divided 50 to 50, let's just share the resources here equally." The bearded man narrowed his eyes slightly and thought for a moment, "Okay, but don't try to attack me secretly, otherwise you will die." Good. After reaching an agreement, the 2 began to collect the remaining light groups. As more and more fragments were picked up, they each mastered several new Zon-level moves, and even ordinary quality equipment was gathered together, and their minds began to become more active. It's that boy who looked so bad from before. The middle-aged man saw the sneaky figure not far away, his eyes shining brightly, and he sneered. "When I landed just now, I seemed to see him here. Why hasn't he left yet? How dare you hang out here?" The bearded man was very unhappy and clenched his fists. Thinking of that mean and funny face, he said, and with that extremely provocative name, I was very eager to rush over and beat him up. "How about, let's go get him, walk." The 2 sides once again reached cooperation because of common interests. Then, the 2 men rushed towards the jungle angrily, shouting angrily, "Hey, don't run away if you have the guts." As the figure in green clothes got closer and closer, the black font of "Invincible, so lonely" above the head was so eye-catching. "Yes, it's him." The middle-aged man and the bearded man sneered. At this time, the man turned around, with a bald head and a mean and funny face, as if he was always saying that he would hit me if he had the guts. You have something to do with me. As soon as the voice fell, the green clothes on the bald man disappeared, replaced by a domineering black and gold armor, and a heavy and condensed big sword in his hand, the sword tip flashing with cold light. A faint purple halo rippled all over his body. This style, it is definitely a rare purple suit. Yi Junlin, who had just gone to the jungle, was also collecting fragments when he had nothing to do, and then synthesized this set of rare purple equipment, and by the way, he also mastered a few Earth-level middle-grade sword moves. Well, it went quite smoothly. At this moment, seeing the two men coming to the door aggressively, Yi Junlin held the big sword and asked seriously about their purpose, but that funny face inexplicably felt a bit out of place. Hiss. The middle-aged man and the bearded man were so scared that their scalps were numb, their eyes almost popped out, their hands and feet were cold, and their bodies were cold. What the hell is this? Is the luck so good? Compared to this bald man, the loot they just collected seems too shabby. It's nothing, we came here just to tell you. Be careful. Window. _Taboola equals window. _Taboola. Push mode. Thumbs feed 01. Container. Taboola below article thumbnail, 300 times 250 feet, placement, below article thumbnail 300 times 250 feet, target _type, mix. Chapter 171. C-171 Brother Invincible is so powerful. Hearing this, Yi Junlin nodded and said, you are quite nice people. Even though they had no intersection, they still ran over to remind him to be careful in this fierce fighting atmosphere. There are still many good people in this world. The middle-aged man wiped the sweat from his forehead, clasped his hands and smiled, Brother Woody, if nothing happens, I will leave first. Yes, we are relieved to see that you are okay, see you later. The bearded man suppressed his fear and turned around and ran away. Swoosh. The two of them tried their best to stay away from the bald man as if they were avoiding the plague god. Suddenly, a sharp sword whistle sounded behind them, and the terrifying sword energy swept in like a hurricane, tearing the grass paths on both sides along the way. Not good. The middle-aged man looked terrified, turned around and clenched his fists and swung hard. Roar. The purple light flew away from the fist and turned into a lifelike, huge angry lion. The purple lightning lion ran with its limbs and roared continuously. But under this terrible hurricane of sword energy, the purple lightning lion was annihilated by the impact. No, the middle-aged man's expression was full of despair and regret. His whole body was instantly pierced by the sword energy, and then turned into a box floating on the ground. The bearded man still wanted to fight back. The upgraded earth shield condensed in front of him, revealing a heavy breath, countless mysterious runes wandering, and the brown light was blazing. Crack, crack, the earth shield was directly shattered, and countless sword energy burst out. The bearded man wanted to cry but had no tears. The next second he lost consciousness and his body turned into a box and fell to the ground. The battle was over. In the field of vision, a sword energy gully about 8 feet wide spread over hundreds of meters, emitting hot gas. The remaining sword intent penetrated into the soil and could kill any small insects in the soil. Haha, do you really think I believe your nonsense? The bald man was wearing a majestic and simple dark gold armor, holding a heavy big sword, and walked with heavy steps. The mysterious purple light flowed around him. This was the symbol of a rare suit. In fact, Yi Junlin knew the purpose of these two people. He was just teasing them on purpose. Out of professionalism, Yi Junlin directly opened the box and touched the corpse, and looted all the fragments of the skills they carried. When playing PUBG, killing the enemy and opening the box is the essence. Let me see what good things there are in this area. Yi Junlin wandered in the jungle near Crescent Lake and picked up all the light balls he saw one by one. Regardless of whether they were useful or not, he just liked the feeling of collecting. Swish. At this time, a series of ivory-colored, slightly hazy and illusory moon spirits emerged like mushrooms after the rain after Yi Junlin set foot on a specific territory. They looked like court dancers, with pretty faces and graceful figures, and their toes were 3 feet off the ground, dancing around Yi Junlin. In an instant, the air around them suddenly dropped, and a strong killing intent gathered on Yi Junlin. Swish. Suddenly, this group of moon spirits swung up their cloud sleeves, and the cloud sleeves were like aqua blue silk, shooting at the man in unison. Ding ding ding. A series of metallic vibrations rang out all over his body. The bald man in the encirclement stood still, allowing the group of moon spirits to output crazily, and his funny face was not panicked at all. That's it. As soon as the words fell, the bald man held the big sword with both hands and swung it violently. The posture was like a hero named Guy activating a skill, sweeping the surrounding moon spirits like autumn wind sweeping fallen leaves. Ah! The shrill screams were heard everywhere, and the group of moon spirits were strangled to death in an instant. After all, with their strength, they can only cause damage to people with ordinary suits at most. When they encounter rare suits 2 levels higher, they naturally cannot beat them. In the wind and clouds, there were bright and shining pills everywhere, small, medium and large levels, some for treatment and some for restoring mana. Yi Junlin selectively took a few pills, and his condition returned to the peak again. When Yi Junlin continued to wander around bored, he didn't know that there were several pairs of eyes watching closely in the distance. On the treetops, 4 men and 1 woman were staring at Yi Junlin, and everyone's eyes were full of surprise and greed. Damn, what kind of shit luck did that guy have? He actually assembled a rare purple suit in such a short time. The elegant man dressed as a scholar with a feather fan and a scarf said indignantly. It's no wonder that the elegant man was jealous, because he was the strongest in the whole team, but the equipment he was wearing was only of excellent blue quality. And he only had a few pieces of the purple suit in his hand, which was far from being able to piece together a complete set. That face deserves a beating. The more I look at it, the more annoyed I get. And the name, what's called invincible lonely? I'm lonely, you're paralyzed. Another companion stared with his eyes and spoke in a passionate manner. I was very upset with him when I was on the ferry boat, and I thought I could teach him a lesson after landing, but unfortunately, another person said depressedly. But that guy is very fat. If we can kill him successfully and divide the resources he has collected, it will be enough for us to establish an advantage. The only charming woman in the team stared at the walking figure with her beautiful eyes like autumn water, licking her lips with desire. Hey, it's easier said than done. The others shook their heads. Although they said so, they were unwilling to let such a big piece of fat walk around and not take it down. Everyone, I think there is still a chance. The elegant man said with a feather fan in his hand and narrowed his eyes. My dear, may I ask what you think? The companion beside him asked curiously. The elegant man said slowly, in our team, there are those who are responsible for close combat and those who specialize in long-range combat. As long as the combination is good, there is a chance to win big with a small investment, but the most important thing is. At this point, the elegant man smiled meaningfully, I have several talismans that are specifically used to weaken the status. If they can be used on him, everything is possible. That's right, what the elegant man said is the weakening function in the talisman, which can greatly reduce the status. If a few weakening shots hit the target, even a king of beasts can be weakened into a kitten. If that's the case, then there's something to do. A companion rubbed his chin, his eyes sparkling. We will listen to you about the specific actions later. Another person said impatiently, rubbing his hands and wanting to beat Yi Junlin up. After all, the image created by Yi Junlin is really too hateful. In the jungle, Yi Junlin was still exploring, either collecting light balls or chopping monsters to death. However, at this moment, a tender voice sounded from behind him, which was numb and made people feel protective. Brother Woody, Yi Junlin turned around subconsciously, raised the sword in his hand and was ready to go. The sword body was rippling with a circle of blazing halo, revealing a terrifying aura. Wait, I don't mean any harm. A charming woman in a pink dress hurried out, with an exaggerated figure and full of charm. Miss, what's wrong with you? Yi Junlin's tone was slightly playful. He wanted to see what this woman was going to do. Brother Woody, the pink-skirted woman intertwined her hands, her charming face full of shyness, and said shyly, I want to make a deal with you. Is it the serious kind? Well, how should I put it, it's quite indecent. Oh, why don't you elaborate? Window. _tabula equals window. _tabula. Push mode, thumb speed 01, container, tabula below article thumbnail, 300 times 250 feet, placement, below article thumbnail 300 times 250 feet, target _type, mix. Chapter 172. C-172 Fierce Battle in the Woods. Looking at this funny face, the pink skirt woman wanted to laugh but didn't dare to, fearing that she would be exposed in the next second. Brother Woody, you also know that we are entering a virtual world. Here, everyone's image is fake, and no one knows who is who outside, but this experience is real. I want to exchange something useful with you, and in return, you can. The pink skirt woman stopped at that point, showing an expression that you understand me, after all, it has been hinted to this extent. Is it appropriate here? Yi Junlin raised his eyebrows, looking at the 3 words, juice squeezer, on the pink skirt woman's head, and immediately understood. Oh, is there still a difference in occasions for this? The pink skirt woman winked. Okay, Yi Junlin nodded and became interested. The pink skirt woman was happy in her heart. Well, this guy finally took the bait obediently. No wonder his name is Woody How Lonely. From the 2 words, lonely, people with a discerning eye can already see a lot. This is called the right medicine for the right disease. Then let's get started. The charming face of the pink skirt woman showed shyness. Suddenly, a pill was thrown at her feet, and a voice with implicit expectation and urgency came, "Here, I want to see you do push-ups." The pink skirt woman's movements froze, her expression was very dull, and a big question mark rose from her head. No, this person is sick, right? I'm almost taking off my clothes and you're telling me this. You want me to do push-ups? The pink skirt woman looked embarrassed. Don't tease me, okay? 1 pill is not enough. Then I'll give you a few more. Yi Junlin waved his generous hand, and 6 bright pills were thrown at the other's feet, just like sending away beggars. Pink skirt woman, Brother Woody, I think you misunderstood what I meant. What I meant was that you can do whatever you want, so you can boldly ask for anything, and be bolder. The pink skirt woman suppressed her anger and said with a stiff smile. Oh, Yi Junlin said thoughtfully, I understand what you mean. The pink skirt woman was relieved. Yeah, then let's hurry up and start. Then do a few more sit-ups. Yi Junlin blurted out. The pink skirt woman was struck by lightning, and her body was shaking with anger, especially when she saw that mean and funny face. The anger in her chest burned even more vigorously. Asshole, you are deliberately playing tricks on me, right? The pink skirt woman gritted her teeth and couldn't hold back the murderous intent in her heart. The original plan was to let the other party fall into the beauty trap, and then do something indecent in the woods, and take action quickly while the other party was sinking into the gentle land, and the success rate would be greatly increased. As a result, the other party did not develop in that direction, and actually asked her to do some insignificant actions. Could it be that he saw something, so he deliberately played tricks on her? Just when the pink-skirted woman was at a loss, a few more fragments of Zon-level top-grade skills appeared under her feet, which shocked her so much that she raised her head instantly and said in disbelief, Brother Woody, I'm asking you, do it or not? Yi Junlin was like a nouveau riche, and his tone was aggravated, as if the few pieces of skills fragments thrown out were insignificant garbage to him. The pink-skirted woman was struggling in her heart. After hesitating for a long time, she slowly nodded. She clenched her teeth and bent down to do push-ups. With regular ups and downs, trembling. There was no way, this man gave too much. At this time, the group of people who were ready to act were stunned by this incredible scene. What is Juicer doing? A companion twitched his eyes, doing push-ups. No, it's sit-ups now. Another person said in astonishment. The veins on the elegant man's forehead bulged, and he no longer had the calm demeanor just now. He said angrily, Damn it, that guy is deliberately playing tricks on us. Don't wait, come on. Swish swish swish, 4 figures immediately took action. Some took out bows and arrows, bent the bows and pulled the strings to condense black light and shoot, some set up shields, held war hammers and marched forward, and some held daggers and stepped on shadow steps, turning into assassins to attack. Tisk, Yi Junlin was not surprised at all, and sneered, finally broke the defense. When he saw the pink-skirt woman appear, he knew that things were not that simple. There must be a group of accomplices who were secretly planning, so he did the opposite, with the purpose of forcing these people to show up. Dare to play tricks on me, I can't kill you. Seeing that the matter was exposed, the pink-skirt woman suddenly jumped up, and angrily threw out the silver whip, which was like a spirit snake twisting and shooting, raising a sharp wind sound, rippling with full power. I'm anxious, I'm all anxious. Yi Junlin chopped with a big sword, and the sword energy flew and stirred. The silver whip couldn't bear it and broke with a crack, which shocked the pink-skirted woman to spit blood, and she was angry and annoyed. After all, that funny face combined with this sentence was really a provocation and ridicule to the extreme in her eyes. Shake the mountain. The tall man held a simple and heavy giant shield, and slammed it fiercely with a yellowish light ball, like a violent bulldozer, with dust rolling and rocks shooting along the way. All chop. The big sword chopped with a blazing halo, and it landed on the giant shield with a dull explosion. The tall man watched the giant shield being chopped off by a sword, and even his body was affected by the residual power. The whole person flew backwards and fell on the tree, bleeding all over, and was in a critical condition. Swish, swish, swish. One after another, arrows with black light condensed came, trying to attract Yi Junline's attention. Yi Junline didn't even want to dodge, and let the arrows hit the black gold armor, making a clanging sound. Swish! There was a sharp sound of wind in his ears. Yi Junline knew that someone was attacking him from behind. He raised the big sword and swung it fiercely. A blazing sword light flew out with great power. Ah! The man screamed, and his body turned into a box and fell in front of Yi Junline. Just when Yi Junline was about to say something, 6 talismans suddenly appeared behind him, emitting a pitch-black glow. Buzz buzz buzz. Yi Junline frowned, and his whole body was surrounded by thick black gas. He felt as if he was invaded by some kind of magic, and his state in all aspects was reduced to the lowest. When he turned around and looked, a gentleman dressed as a scholar was in front of him, with an expression of success on his face. The 6-fold weakness is locked in. What else can you say about this wave? The elegant man held a feather fan in his hand. He was ready at this moment. He swung the feather fan with a grim smile. The snow-white light was dazzling. This was a low-grade earth-level spell. If it hit Yi Junline, he would definitely be seriously injured. The elegant man was very confident and felt that he had a sure win. The opponent was marked with the 6-fold weakness state. Now he couldn't even lift the knife and could only passively take the beating. Next, what he had to do was to kill this person and successfully inherit all the resources on the opponent. All the skills and equipment were his. As for the rest of the members, the elegant man said that he would give them to him for safekeeping. After all, after this battle, these people were no longer useful to him, so he might as well get rid of them all. However, the juicer can stay and still be used. Just as the feather fan was about to hit Yi Junline's chest with terrifying power, a sacred and peaceful white light emanated from his body, dispersing all the black air that permeated his body, as if to drive away any negative effects. This is, the elegant man widened his eyes, with an ominous premonition in his heart. Boom! This spell was blocked by the sword, and a brilliant light burst out, and the energy flow raged throughout the venue. Wonderful, wonderful! Yi Junline's figure did not move at all, as steady as a mountain, and said playfully, "It's a pity that I have purification." Window. _tabula equals window. _tabula. Push mode. Thumbs feed 01. Container. Tabula below article feed. Placement. Below article feed. Target _type. Mix. Chapter 173. C-173 The Turbulent Chicken-Eating Battlefield. Why didn't you tell me earlier that you were purified? The elegant man shouted angrily, his heart felt like bleeding. Fortunately, he wasted 6 weak talismans, which could save his life at this critical moment. Blame it on me, Yi Junline shrugged. In the process of collecting, he accidentally picked up a purification talisman, which can remove all negative effects. Unexpectedly, it could be put into use like that. You're riding a horse. Seeing the other party showing such a mean attitude, the elegant man was so angry that he broke his guard and wanted to curse on the spot, but the fierce sword energy that hit his face made his expression suddenly change and turned into a look of panic. Hurriedly changed his words. Brother Invincible, spare your life. Aha! The thick sword light came towards him, like a snow-white waterfall flying down, directly covering the elegant man. Boom! The ground collapsed instantly, sending thick smoke and dust everywhere. After the smoke cleared, there was only a square wooden box, proving that the previous owner had been there. Run! The young man in civilian clothes holding a bow and arrow was so frightened that he turned around and fled. Kyla, the condensed sword light shot out like a golden rainbow, penetrating the chest of the clothed young man, causing blood to spurt out. Ah! The young man in civilian clothes fell to the ground and struggled to crawl forward. His expression was full of pain and his intestines were turning blue with regret. The human heart is not enough for a snake to swallow an elephant. If they had known earlier, they would have walked around this guy, but now they all had to stay here because they were so hot-headed. Brother Invincible, don't kill me. The woman in pink skirt turned pale with fear. The bald man with a funny face in front of her became more terrifying than a ghost in her eyes. Why don't I kill you? Just because you can squeeze juice. Yi Junline half smiled. The woman in the pink skirt nodded like a chicken. Yeah, if Brother Wu Wei is willing, I can serve you, just to relieve my worries later. Give me a chance, Brother Invincible. In order to continue to survive, the woman in the pink skirt suppressed her inner resistance, her eyes moved, and she said sweetly. Give your mother a head. The next second, the terrifying sword light fell down. I'll fight for you, you bastard. Seeing that she was certain to die, the woman in the pink skirt became so angry that she turned into a tigress, baring her teeth and claws. Ah! The screams stopped abruptly. The graceful figure disappeared and was replaced by a small wooden box. The other two people who were seriously injured and dying also bled to death because they lost the opportunity for treatment. At this time, 5 small wooden boxes were lying quietly around Yi Junlin. The deceased passed away peacefully. Hey, why bother? Yi Junlin shook his head. After searching for resources, he swallowed the elixir to restore his condition. He put the domineering sword on his shoulder and walked towards the distance with steps that he did not recognize his relatives, humming a light tune in his mouth. At the same moment, the remaining number of people displayed in the upper right corner was already 65. It is conceivable that fierce fighting broke out during the time when 100 trialists landed, and the equipment and skills of those who are still alive are not too bad. As for those who have become boxes, their true bodies have long been eliminated and automatically teleported out of Immortal Island. Everyone is developing like crazy, striving to survive to the finals and achieve the final victory. People still have to have some dreams. If not, what is the difference between it and salted fish? So even though most of the trialists here feel that they will probably be reduced to running around, what if they succeed? Of course, there are still some people who just want to experience this interesting trial. Everyone is happy if they win and can face it calmly if they lose. Ancient Sword Tomb. 2 figures are competing. They competed with each other in swordsmanship, their sword energy was surging freely, and the sword moves they performed were all equally powerful. At this time, a man in white with long hair tied in a white ribbon, a stern face, and eyes that contained stars, walked over step by step, holding an ice blue sword. The sudden appearance of a powerful enemy forced the 2 people who were still fighting fiercely to stop, and they all looked at each other with surprise and uncertainty. You are Shui Wuan. Although the image here can be fictional, the character is deliberately created to be close to himself, and even the name is so consistent that it is difficult not to recognize his true identity at a glance. At this time, the man in white was holding a purple rare quality ice soul sword. His expression was cold and indifferent, and his thin lips slightly uttered one word, yes. He doesn't bother to hide his identity here. Even the name above the head has the 4 characters, Sword Immortal in white. Although this is a virtual world, if you can fight against the legendary swordsman, your labor will not be in vain. Yeah, he doesn't know who we are anyway, so we might as well join forces to deal with him. The 2 of them were eager to try, with fighting spirit boiling in their eyes. As a result, before they could regain their senses, Shui Wuan had already taken the lead and quickly approached with the help of earth-level body movements. The ice soul sword in his hand stabbed away, and the sword body produced mysterious fluctuations. For a while, snowflakes were flying around, and the cold air was freezing to the bone. No, my movements have slowed down. One of the men with a handsome face shrank his pupils and realized something was wrong. The other person gritted his teeth and was about to rise up to resist, shouting, "Kill!" But their speed was slow after all. In just 3 seconds, they were stabbed hundreds of times, and their health bars were cleared to 0. The snowflake vision gradually disappeared, leaving only the figure in white, standing quietly with a sword in hand, with 2 more boxes at his feet. Shui Wuan looked into the distance and suddenly noticed that the map refreshed and showed that a large circle covered 4 areas, and the other 2 were outside the large circle. Is this the beginning of the spread of death? Shui Wuan raised his eyebrows. Fortunately, the ancient sword tomb where he was within the large circle, so he didn't have to worry too much at the moment. However, he had to prepare for the rainy day and try to find a reliable mount so that he could come and go freely. After all, the area of Phuket Island is quite large. If you don't have time to hide in a safe area, but are swallowed by the spreading death, you will be very unlucky. In the Luandao Valley outside the circle, figures can be seen fleeing in panic one after another, all avoiding the impending death. In a cave somewhere on the cliff, a battle between life and death is breaking out at this time. The eagle is mine, no one can snatch it from me. Get out, or you will die. Damn, who do you think you are? Several figures fought each other, and sometimes people fell into boxes. Finally, the shouting and killing gradually died down. A middle-aged man in a bamboo green robe held 2 scimitars in his hands, his face full of excitement. Haha, I won after all, and this eagle is mine. This is my eagle. Looking at the golden-beaked eagle in front of him, which was 8 meters tall, with feathers like cold iron, sharp feathers, and a majestic and imposing head and chest, the green-robed man was very excited and shouted loudly. Now, the death aura is about to devour the chaotic Blade Valley. With such a flying mount, you can quickly leave this ominous place. The most important thing is that the eagle looks very handsome. It is very suitable for showing off in the next battle. Really, Suddenly, a clear and pleasant female voice sounded, and you can tell from the voice that it is a delicate and cute girl. There's someone else. A hint of ruthlessness flashed in the green-robed man's eyes. He clenched his two knives and turned to chop. Two half-moon-shaped knife lights shot out with great power. Boom! The two knife lights were blocked. A thick smoke filled the air, and a burly figure walked out of it. His muscles were knotted like a devil muscle man, full of explosive power, but on his thick neck, he had a cute and lovely lowly face, big watery eyes, and pink lips, which was very inconsistent from a visual perspective. At this time, she walked slowly with a big knife, revealing a terrible sense of oppression like a mountain. You are the strange woman on the boat. The green-robed man was shocked and felt a chill on his back. Hee, the big eagle is mine. The muscular woman spun around with a big knife and chopped, rolling up a fierce knife aura along the way, catching the green-robed man off guard. Puff! A few seconds later, a bloodline appeared on the neck of the green-robed man. He staggered back a few steps, knelt on the ground weakly, his eyes dim, and suddenly turned into a box. Done. The muscular woman shook her hair proudly, showing her white teeth. Yes, this person is Li Wuji. Li Wuji wanted to leave quickly before the death aura came, but when he passed by, he heard the sound of fighting and came to check. After seeing the flying mount, he did not move and waited for the fisherman to profit. Now, this flying mount belongs to him. Looking at this giant raptor with a domineering posture, tilting its head to look at him, Li Wuji sighed. Well, this eagle is big enough, I like it very much. Soon, a loud cry came from the cave. A majestic eagle flew out of the cave as fast as lightning, spread its wings and soared in the sky, heading straight for a safe destination. Ha 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 ha, on the broad back of the eagle, there stood a muscular loli facing the wind with her hands on her hips, laughing heartily. Chapter 174. C-174 Surface Brothers. Misty Jungle. As the name suggests, there is a thick white fog everywhere, which permeates the lush forest. Every towering ancient tree is lush and leafy, and the treetops seem to cover the sky, giving people a sense of ancient vicissitudes. 6 figures walked and talked to each other at this moment, looking very relaxed. The two areas currently excluded from the big circle are the chaotic Blade Valley and the Frost Plain, so we don't need to be too nervous and take this opportunity to find more high-level fragments. Hee, I only need 2 purple fragments to piece together a complete rare-level breastplate. The 2 unlucky guys we met just now were beaten up by us, and they exploded a lot of recovery pills, enough for us brothers. The 6 of us work together to dominate the misty jungle, and we can establish a huge advantage in the early stage. Who said that sheep only travel in groups? What a foolish opinion. The one-eyed man in the lead, dressed like a barbarian warrior, walked with a big head. He swaggered with an extremely arrogant expression, saying, Damn it, it's a pity that the 6 of us have traveled all over this place, but we haven't met that guy called. I am the only one who is supreme, otherwise we must beat him to his knees and call him daddy. Another companion heard this and grinned. That's right, I was very upset when I saw that guy on the ferry boat before. He looked like a lone ranger. If we meet him, he will regret joining this trial. Don't mention him. I guess with his ability, he would have been killed at the beginning. The remaining dozens of people are all elites among elites. How can they be such pretentious people? A companion beside him echoed. Ha 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 ha. As soon as these words came out, the one-eyed dragon man and others couldn't help laughing, and the air was suddenly filled with a happy atmosphere. Suddenly, a silver meteor streaked across the sky, dragging a bright white rainbow, and quickly passed over the heads of the 6 people. Then, it fell on a mountain 200 meters away, and the loud rumbling sound could be heard from a long distance. What is that? Everyone was shocked. The one-eyed man came back to his senses from the shock and fell into ecstasy. Could this be a treasure from heaven? The treasure from heaven is a setting in this round of levels. The probability of its appearance is extremely rare. Trialists can go to the place where the fallen treasure is obtained and obtain various precious resources. Whoever is lucky enough to pick it up can be fully armed and will have a huge advantage in the next struggle. Hiss, so lucky, I guess there may be higher quality equipment in it. A full set of purple rare equipment. Little brother, please be more open-minded, I think it is at least orange epic equipment. Fuck, isn't that? In the face of huge temptations of interests, the minds of these people instantly became active, and the eyes looking at their companions contained some deep meaning. After all, there is only one quota to inherit the fallen fairy island in this round of levels. Don't look at how much they worked together and cooperated tacitly before, but in fact, they all know that this kind of cooperation is just a temporary transition. If it really comes to the end, they will have to fight. Moreover, now that a treasure has fallen from the sky, there is a possibility that they will completely take off and dominate the whole scene. It would be strange if they didn't have any strange thoughts. Sensing the strange atmosphere, a subtle gleam flashed in the eyes of the one-eyed man. He pretended to cough a few times and said seriously, "The most urgent thing is to go to the treasure location. After arriving, we will divide the resources equally and no one will take advantage of anyone. After all, we are all brothers." "Yes, yes, we are all brothers," the others reacted and said with a smile. But this smile was indescribably awkward. "Let's go, don't let others get ahead," the one-eyed man called out. He was thinking that he couldn't fight now, and he had to stabilize these people. After all, there was a possibility that other teams would come to share a piece of the pie after arriving at the location. If there was, they would join forces to fight the enemy. After all, there was strength in numbers. But if not, then, the one-eyed man knew very well that the so-called equal sharing of resources was just a polite talk. If an epic equipment really exploded, how could it be divided among the 6 people? Would they take turns wearing it to experience it? Therefore, if the spoils were not shared equally, there would definitely be conflicts and they would have to kill each other. The most dangerous thing now is that he is the strongest on the surface, and the other people may temporarily form an alliance to deal with him. It is very dangerous. Thinking about it, the one-eyed man gradually felt anxious. At the beginning, teamwork did have advantages, but in the face of the real temptation of interests, this sharp blade stabbing at the opponent might turn around and stab himself. The other people had their own ulterior motives. They didn't say anything along the way. They kept their distance from each other intentionally or unintentionally, and sneered in their hearts. Brothers on the surface are more like brothers. Whoosh, the rapid airflow filled their ears crazily. 6 figures ran straight to the destination along the path. Soon, they saw a silver glow on the mountain, as if it was a bright gem embedded in the soil, emitting a brilliant and dazzling brilliance. "It's right there." Everyone looked at each other at the same time, and then burst into a sprint. At this time, hot gas came out of the sunken pit, and there was a huge silver meteorite inside. As long as the trialer went over to start the extraction, he could get the resources contained in it. The 6 people stood side by side, looking at the silver meteorite in the pit, with an undisguised passion in their eyes. As long as you get all the resources inside, even a weak chicken can suddenly become a phoenix. "Is there no one else around here? Where? Aren't you? What? You? Huh." A turbulent ink-colored palm light shot over, and a huge bear head could be vaguely seen. It roared with its mouth open, its fangs were thick, and its blood-red eyes were extremely violent. A mid-level stunt on the earth level, the devil bear shakes the sky. Aha! One of them, a tall and lanky man, was hit with a palm print in the middle of his chest. He was hit so hard that he was covered in blood mist and flew backwards, turning into a square box and falling to the ground. You mount a sneak attack on horseback. The other 4 people's scalps were numb, and they distanced themselves as if facing a formidable enemy. They looked at the one-eyed dragon man who suddenly took action in shock and anger. The one-eyed dragon man sneered triumphantly, "Who will tell you about martial ethics in this situation? Anyway, these people will all be his opponents, so it would be better to kill one of them first to reduce the pressure. Are you too arrogant? Do you really think that one person can hit 4 of us?" The man in green looked gloomy, waving a silver-white spear in his hand, with terrifying energy fluctuations lingering on the spearhead, aiming at the one-eyed dragon man in front. Here, his strength is second only to the one-eyed dragon man. The one-eyed dragon man said meaningfully, "You also know my strength. I can definitely support me before I die. Why don't you cooperate with me and kill the other 3 bastards? Let's have a good fight and decide the outcome." The expressions of the other 3 people changed slightly, and they also distanced themselves from the man in green to prevent the other party from suddenly making evil moves. The man in Xingyi looked at the expressions of the other 3 people and secretly thought that they were really cunning, so he was also separated from the small group. "It seems that if you don't get on this pirate ship, you have to get on it, and you will fall out sooner or later anyway. Okay, I promise you, get rid of the 3 of them first, and then we can decide the outcome." Haha, so happy. After saying that, the one-eyed dragon man and the man in green jointly launched an attack with the other 3 people, and the 2 sides started fighting fiercely. 20 minutes later, there are 3 more boxes in the field. The one-eyed dragon man and the man in green faced each other warily, and at the same time they swallowed pills to recover, preparing for the decisive battle between the 2. The devil bear shakes the sky. The one-eyed dragon man reacted in case of delay. He flew up with a roar, and slapped his metal-covered palm hard, bursting out with terrifying force. Vaguely, a demonic bear gathered in the void, opened its bloody mouth and roared, full of ferocity and frightening people. 9 forms of stabbing the dome. The man in green is holding a silver-white spear, and when he swings it, he stirs up a fierce wind. The snow-white spear light cuts through the sky like a comet. His aura is very strong, as if he is possessed by the god of war. The two sides fought for about 10 minutes, and finally the one-eyed dragon man won by a slight margin. BTCH, it turns out you have some of the pieces I need. You hid them quite deep before. After opening the wooden box, the one-eyed man's clothes changed into a brand new set, with a purple halo exuding all over his body. This is the symbol of a rare set. Now, all the treasures belong to me. The one-eyed dragon man laughed loudly, feeling a strong sense of accomplishment in his heart. Aha! At this moment, a transparent humanoid outline suddenly appeared from behind, holding 5 talismans in his hand. 2 were weak, 3 were ignited, and they were all placed on the one-eyed dragon. Ah, who is it? The one-eyed dragon man's condition suddenly dropped, his whole body was burning with unknown flames, and his life was flowing out crazily. At this time, he was shocked and angry that there was someone else on the field besides him. Because of the action, the invisibility state was lifted, and it was a handsome man wearing red clothes with a playful smile on his lips. There is a line of words above the head, I am the only one. Yes, it's you. The one-eyed dragon man's eyes were about to burst, and his whole body was shaking with anger. He recognized this person as the one on the ferry boat. Hong Chenny sneered. To be a sheep, you have to have the consciousness of a sheep. You actually want to monopolize the treasure. You don't even urinate and look after yourself. Are you worthy? He actually arrived earlier than these 6 people. When he saw that it would take a certain amount of time to extract the meteorite, and if it was too late, he would be discovered and besieged, so he simply laid in wait and watched. Until the one-eyed dragon man won and his equipment upgraded and his strength skyrocketed, he knew he couldn't wait any longer, so he used the invisibility charm to quietly weaken the opponent's status and give himself an advantage. Window. _tabula equals window. _tabula. Push mode. Thumbs feed 01. Container. Tabula below article feed. Placement. Below article feed. Target _type. Mix. Chapter 175. C-175 Dragon Cave. Could he be the winner? You are despicable, shameless. The one-eyed dragon man gritted his teeth. Hong Chenny sneered. Haha, don't forget, it was you who killed your teammates with your own hands, and I was just an audience watching the show. Both inside and outside the words were full of ridicule. The one-eyed man was furious. Labor and management will kill you. After saying that, directly and decisively, turn around and run. That's right. The one-eyed man pretended to attack, but actually wanted to run away immediately. At this time, the one-eyed dragon man's footsteps were filled with wind, and countless blue gases surrounded his body. It seemed that there was some kind of magical power, and his speed was outrageous. This is a talisman that uses the sprint function. The one-eyed dragon man's idea is very simple. If he continues to fight in his current state, he will definitely lose. It is better to retreat strategically and have a chance to make a comeback. Hong Chenny sneered again and again. He had seen this kind of bluffing method many times when he was involved in the Devil's Path. On the surface, he wanted to fight in a bloody battle, but in the next second he turned around and ran away. Of course, he had been prepared. Just when the one-eyed dragon man thought he could escape, an apricot yellow flag flew up into the sky with a bright yellow light, turning into a misty light curtain and covering the top of the mountain. Boom! A dull crashing sound sounded. The light curtain set off waves of ripples. Seeing that he was stopped by the light curtain, the one-eyed dragon man's mentality immediately broke apart, and he shouted in grief and anger, "You bitch, you can just step on the horse and be a human being." If it was his heyday, this light curtain would only need to be broken through with all his strength, but now that his condition is so bad, this light curtain has cut off his last way of survival. Hong Chenny put his hands behind his back, stepped closer, and said sarcastically, "Before, you clamored on the ferry boat to teach me a lesson, but why are you running away now?" The one-eyed dragon man gritted his teeth and said, "Despicable guy, you have the guts to fight me fairly." "Fair? Isn't it fair now? It's a one-on-one fight." Hong Chenny sneered, stretched out her hand to strike quickly, released several raging fire dragons, and rushed toward the target with fangs and claws. "Labor and management will fight with you." The one-eyed man was extremely sad and angry. With no way to retreat, he decided to drag his weak body to resist. Half a minute later, a square box lay on the ground, its original owner walking very peacefully. Hong Chenny didn't even look at it. She rushed to the silver meteorite, suppressed her excitement, and started the extraction. Buzz buzz. After dozens of seconds, the bright silver meteorite turned dull and turned into an ordinary boulder. Hong Chenny looked at the extracted materials, feeling like a storm was rising in her heart. Well, the original clothes on his body disappeared, replaced by a dark purple armor with a majestic shape that symbolized the mysterious atmosphere. There was also a pair of gorgeous purple flame wings behind him, which set off a mighty hot air flow when flapping. In his hand, there was also a jet black Fengtian painted halberd, releasing a terrifying evil spirit that shot straight into the sky. A complete epic set, you deserve it. At this moment, Hong Chenny, who had obtained this set of epic equipment, felt the unparalleled surging power. The corners of her mouth could not stop rising crazily, and finally she raised her head and laughed wildly, ah ha 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 ha. Really, every dog has his day. I am the final winner. Hong Chenny has already begun to fantasize about killing in a big way, becoming the last winner, and inheriting the beautiful scene of Immortal Island. Wait, a new big circle has appeared again. Suddenly, Hong Chenny noticed that a new large circle appeared in advance on the map, and the two original locations, Luandao Valley and Frost Plain, were already shrouded in the scope of death. As for the large shrinkage this time, it is limited to Chimay Mountain. As you can imagine, this is definitely a place where dragons and tigers fight. Although Chimay Mountain is extremely far from here, fortunately, I don't have such mileage anxiety at all. Hong Chenny said slightly proudly, and the pair of gorgeous purple flame wings behind him flapped violently, releasing wisps of gorgeous fireworks. Whoosh! The sonic boom was deafening. A dark purple figure broke through the sound barrier and shot straight into the sky, flying into the distance at lightning speed. He wanted to arrive at Chimay Mountain in advance to ambush before the death aura came. Not only Hong Chenny, but also the 35 people who had survived so far, all rushed to Chimay Mountain after seeing the changes in the map. Chimay Mountain seemed to have become the place for the final decisive battle. And at the junction of Chimay Mountain and the Misty Jungle, there is a hidden area that can be called a map, and almost no one knows about it. Boom! A blue, thick thunder light landed, containing special power, and bombarded the armored beast guarding the grotto. The armored beast's skin was instantly torn apart, its flesh and blood were blurred, and burnt black smoke was emitting. It roared in pain, its blood-red eyes full of anger, dragging its heavily injured body, and slapped it hard with its palms. Boom! The young man in black slid back more than 10 feet, plowing 2 lines of deep ravines. His sword-shaped eyebrows flew into his temples, his eyes were like starry nights, and an angry look appeared on his handsome face. On his head, there is a line of thick black fonts, which means as if to tell the world, I have the appearance of becoming an immortal. This person is Chen Xiao, the holy son of the Yuhua sect who sneaked in. After Chen Xiao entered the map, he began to develop obscenely when he landed. While collecting light groups, he accidentally picked up a mysterious sheepskin map, which was about the division of the 6 regions of Phuket Island. I thought it was very useless, but Chen Xiao, when I took a closer look, I was shocked. Because it is marked in detail, there is a small hidden area between Chimay Mountain and the Misty Jungle. This is a place name that is not shown at all on public maps. And on the sheepskin map, it's called Dragon Cave. According to the above records, there is a secret treasure left by the ancient dragon in the Dragon Cave. As long as the secret treasure is successfully found, you can obtain part of the power of the dragon, which is a power that surpasses all living creatures on the island. Chen Xiao was very excited at the time, because the location and existence of the Dragon Cave must only be known to those holding a sheepskin map. And if he can get the sheepskin map, it means he has the key to the secret treasure of the Dragon Cave. No one except him knows this location. Therefore, Chen Xiao followed the instructions on the sheepskin map to find this mysterious hidden area, but the process was very tortuous and he had to deal with the monsters along the way. Fortunately, he found the entrance to the Dragon Cave. Just when Chen Xiao was excited to go in, the armored beast responsible for guarding the entrance of the cave appeared to intercept him. In desperation, Chen Xiao could only fight fiercely with it. Damn it, you just received a punishment from me, and you're not dead yet. At this time, Chen Xiao gritted his teeth in anger as he looked at the armored beast covered in scars. The talisman known as punishment was specially used to deal with monsters. Chen Xiao has always treasured it and did not dare to use it casually. It was not until he met this powerful armored beast that was comparable to a complete purple rare suit that he was forced to use it. Who would have thought that this armored beast was so tough that it could resist a punishment and still not die? The armored beast was covered in blood. It made a posture like a tiger pouncing on food, looked at the figure in black in front of it, stretched out its limbs and ran away. Roar. The evil spirit came to my face. Chen Xiao gritted his teeth, unwilling to retreat. You know, the entrance to the dragon cave is right in front of you, and the power of the dragon is waiting for him to inherit it. As long as he successfully obtains it, no one will be his opponent in the next battle, and he will be the last survivor. It is imperative for me to carry out the inheritance of Immortal Island. I, Chen Xiao, am the chosen one. No one can stop my rise. Chen Xiao roared, and his blood was surging. Facing the armored beast's lunge, he reacted quickly. He clasped his hands together and formed a blazing lightsaber. He rushed over and made a sliding shovel. The lightsaber slashed along the belly of the armored beast. Pass. PFF'd. The armored beast fell to the ground in embarrassment, blood flowing out along its cracked belly, which made its already huge injuries worse. Aurora technique. Chen Xiao stood up quickly, raised his hand and struck out dozens of white rainbows, blasting the armored beast wildly. Boom boom boom. Explosions came and went. After a long time, there were dense groups of light on the ground where the armored beast died, including fragments of techniques, talismans, elixirs and so on. Humph, you forced me to do this. Seeing that the threat was lifted, Chen Xiao breathed a long sigh of relief, and a sneer escaped from the corner of his mouth. After picking up the light ball, Chen Xiao couldn't hold back his excitement and rushed directly into the dragon cave. The interior of the dragon cave is very large and has a unique cave, which is similar to the sense of sight of the stalactite cave. In the twists and turns of the passage, Chen Xiao came to the deepest point. In front of him was a strange oval stone, exuding wisps of dragon pressure, which made people feel frightened. Chen Xiao tentatively put his hand on it, and the strange stone burst out with blazing divine light. A vast and powerful power poured into his body along the palm of his hand. Chen Xiao felt that the blood all over his body was boiling, and his eyes were shining. When he looked inside his dantian, he saw a golden ball floating in the air, containing swirling dragon-shaped gas, which was mysterious and noble. At this time, Chen Xiao has obtained part of the power of the dragon. As long as he mobilizes this golden ball, he can obtain the blessing of power at will, and his whole person will be instantly powerful. A guy with a complete set of rare level equipment can be killed by this holy sun with just one slap. Even if a person with an epic level set of equipment stands in front of me, he must not be able to last a few breaths in front of me. Now I am invincible. Chen Xiao burst out with a proud laugh, his hair waving wildly, as if he saw himself becoming the final winner. He is the new owner of this immortal island. Red Eyebrow Mountain, I, the Holy Sun, should go on a killing spree there. Chen Xiao mobilized a small part of the divine dragon power in his body, and 2 dragon horns appeared on his forehead, and a golden dragon tail spread out from behind him, his eyes like he was electric and looked very majestic. Aha! This figure that looked both human and inhuman disappeared into the dragon cave. Outside the dragon cave, a dazzling golden light split through the air at an unimaginable speed, heading straight towards the Red Eyebrow Mountain. Chapter 176. C-176. See you in the finals. It is different from the turbulent Phuket Island. In the real world at this time, a Taoist priest with an immortal spirit stood in the yard and carefully looked at the various scenes displayed in the pond. Someone actually found the way. I stayed here on purpose. Seeing Chen Xiao find the dragon cave and obtain the power of the dragon, Lu Wangshu's face showed surprise. The so-called dragon cave, the power of the dragon, is just a trick, and the sheepskin map is a clue, but the chance of it being revealed is very low. Chen Xiao's ability to get this opportunity proves that he is also a man of great luck. Now he has almost no opponents in Phuket Island, and he definitely has the ability to dominate the battlefield. Is he the new successor this time? Lu Wangshu raised his eyebrows, feeling a little conflicted in his heart for some reason. He always felt that this son was not a kind person. Phuket Island. Countless streaks of blood-colored gas that symbolized death spread rapidly, and all the vegetation in its path withered, and the beautiful mountains and rivers were eclipsed. The dead energy began to shrink further. This time, except for Chimay Mountain, other areas will suffer. On the path, a gray donkey crossed the high mountains and headed rapidly towards Chimay Mountain. The donkey looks silly and looks very unpleasant, but it is a real mount. On its back sat a thin, bald man with a mean expression, a very funny face that couldn't be beaten, as if he was mocking people all the time. This strange combination has become a breath of fresh air on this battlefield. The bald man turned his head and looked at the rolling death air behind him, and sighed helplessly, "Hey, the poisonous circle is here so quickly." He patted the donkey head and urged, "Xiao Wei, hurry up, work harder, and I'll find you a female donkey later." The donkey raised its head and made a dissatisfied cry, which means that you, Mr. Donkey, and I have tried our best. In response, Yi Junlin shook his head helplessly. Not only was the shape of this mountain interesting, but its speed was also interesting. If you want to switch to a more powerful high-level mount, its speed will definitely be unparalleled. Sudden, a silver meteor streaked across the sky and landed in front of him by chance. Boom, mushroom clouds rose high. Good guy, isn't this an airdrop? Yi Junlin knew that this was a setting similar to an airdrop, here it was called Tianzhongbao, and it contained huge benefits. Xiao Wei, hurry up. The donkey rushed forward with all his strength and came to the landing place of the meteorite. Yi Junlin flew up, put his hand on it, and started the extraction stage. Buzz buzz, the meteorite loses its silver luster and becomes dull. Hiss, when he saw the hidden supplies, Yi Junlin couldn't help but take a breath of cold air. Wow, golden legend, Chimay Mountain, the continuous rolling hills look majestic. The rocks and sand here are red, and the temperature is higher than in other places. At the same time, figures arrived one after another at this place of decisive battle. What's interesting is that those trialists who settled in Chimay Mountain in advance, in order to avoid exposing their whereabouts and attracting everyone's attention, hurriedly found a place to hide and secretly observed the direction of the situation. Invisibly, pairs of eyes were peering in the dark, and the air was filled with a faint murderous intent. Chimay Mountain, which was supposed to be lively, became dead and silent, as if there were no living people here. Only those who know the inside story will know that there are murderous intentions everywhere in this place. Anyone who dares to show his face will definitely be targeted and die miserably. Just when everyone had their own secrets, a figure in white rode a white tiger into Chimay Mountain. This white tiger is 3 meters tall, with snow-white hair all over its body, and its pair of azure eyes reveal a ferocious intent. On its back, sitting a stern man in white clothes with a sling on his waist. Holding a long sword, his expression was indifferent, with no opponent in his eyes. The 4 characters, Sword Immortal in white, on his head have revealed his true identity in the real world. Don't bother pretending, just so confident. Is that the Sword Immortal Shui Wuan? The people hiding in the darkness were shocked, knowing that this was a powerful enemy. Huh, what are you afraid of? Everyone here is the same. They rely on the means they have obtained. If he dares to appear so blatantly, it seems that he will be besieged by fire. From a certain sand pile, a sinister voice came from whispers. Obviously, Shui Wuan appeared riding a white tiger and wandering in the most conspicuous position of Chimay Mountain, and everyone had already noticed it. That kind of fearless posture and contemptuous eyes made many trialists feel unhappy in their hearts, and they were eager to deal cruel blows to this powerful enemy. After all, the opportunity to fight against the Sword Immortal is only once in this life. Even though this is in a virtual world, it is still an indirect battle. After going out, you can also brag to your relatives and friends that you have fought against a real swordsman, and the fight was back and forth. With his keen intuition, Shui Wuan knew that some people were secretly spying on him, and the killing intent in the air became more and more solid. It is very likely that he will be attacked by a group of people. However, Shui Wuan didn't take it to heart at all and still went his own way, wandering around on a white tiger. Suddenly, a loud chirp pierced the sky, and a heroic laughter sounded. Just by the sound, she sounded like a cute girl. Who? Everyone looked at him in surprise, and their expressions suddenly became strange. Looking at the muscular loli standing on the big eagle with her arms folded, even the corners of Shui Wuan's mouth twitched imperceptibly. No matter what his character is, he thinks this style is too eye-catching. At this moment, the big eagle was flapping its wings in midair. The girl, who was as tall as an iron tower and had a cute face, said with interest to the man in white below, "Hey, your mount is quite cool." Shui Wuan nodded slightly, "Thank you fellow Taoist for the compliment. This white tiger is a high-level mount that can also assist its master in fighting. It is definitely a great help to him. But my sculpture is bigger than yours." As she spoke, the muscular loli puffed up her chest proudly and said proudly. Shui Wuan was speechless. The muscular Lolita who came over was naturally Li Wuji. After terminating the informal conversation, Li Wuji looked around intentionally and sneered, "Okay, everyone is hiding." Well, Li Wuji pulled out his long sword and shouted in an imposing manner, "What I hate the most are the rats who hide their heads and show their tails. If you don't want to come out, don't force the labor and management to trouble you one by one." As soon as these words came out, the killing intent in the air suddenly boiled. The trialists hidden in the Red Eyebrow Mountain were all extremely dissatisfied with the arrogance of that muscular Lolita. A swordsman like Senior Shui can understand even though he is crazy. How come you, a guy with such a unique hobby, dare to show off? Suddenly, some people were ready to make a move. There are at least 30 people dormant in Chimay Mountain. If they gather together, they will be an extremely powerful force. Even if he has a full set of rare equipment and a strong man who has mastered many earth-level techniques, he will be dead if he is trapped in it. Now, Li Wuji's words aroused public outrage, and everyone was wondering whether to kill this muscular Lolita first to vent their hatred. Looking at the muscular Lolita who raised the knife and screamed, Shui Wuan was slightly stunned, and her eyes were more appreciative. Although it still felt very spicy, it was inexplicably very appetizing. He's carefree, outspoken, and fun to talk to. I don't know what a girl like this with a bold personality and a penchant for fun looks like in real life. At this time, Shui Wuan began to have unprecedented curiosity about this muscular Lolita. I really want to get to know each other. Window. _tabula equals window. _tabula. Push mode, thumbs feed 01, container, tabula below article thumbnail, 300 times 250 feet, placement, below article thumbnail minus 300 times 250 feet, target _type, mix. Chapter 177. C177 Chaos in the Finals. Hey, what are you looking at when you step on a horse? Do you want to challenge me to a duel? She noticed that the man in white saw her again, and saw the muscular Lolita holding a long knife and pointing at it from a distance, with her chin slightly raised, as if she was not afraid of anything. Being able to fight indirectly with this swordsman in the virtual world, Li Wuji, as a sword cultivator, felt a strong interest in his heart. As soon as these words came out, Chimay Mountain became quiet for an instant. Everyone sneered, secretly thinking that this weirdo was really a disaster, and he actually dared to be so disrespectful to the man in white. After all, this is a newly promoted swordsman. With his character, how can he tolerate the provocation of a junior? As their thoughts turned, everyone suppressed the murderous intention in their hearts and planned to take this opportunity to sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight, and further find out the details of Shui Wuan. Who knew that Shui Wuan didn't particularly care about the muscle Lolita's arrogant attitude? He sat cross-legged on the white tiger and looked at the muscular Lolita standing on the big eagle. His expression moved and he said seriously, "This fellow Taoist has the same interests as me. Why don't we join forces temporarily to kill all the rats hiding in this place?" Cleaned up. Boom. Chimay Mountain, which was originally silent, immediately erupted into boiling murderous aura, making people feel as cold as falling into an ice cellar. Those trialists hiding in the dark were shocked and angry. They didn't expect that Shui Wuan would actually ignore his own identity and be willing to put down his body and express his kindness to that muscle loli. It seems that this battle must be fought. Li Wuji was stunned and scratched his head. This man was quite sincere and did not put on a high arrogance as he imagined. In this case, it was hard for him to refuse. After all, anyone who can cooperate with a strong person of this level will feel proud. Since you are so sincere, we will cooperate. But the scandal is ahead. If you do some tricks behind your back, don't blame your employer and your employer for turning against you. Li Wuji put the big knife on his shoulder, glared and warned. After finishing speaking, he felt very happy, and the pores all over his body seemed to be stretching, giving him an indescribable sense of relief. If you say arrogant words to the sword fairy and slap your nose and face, how can you have such a chance if you put it outside? In a word, this trip was not in vain. And in Shui Wuan's personal vision, the muscular Lolita with a carefree personality put a big knife on her shoulder, stared at her big watery eyes, and said harsh words with a proud face. Her voice was soft and sweet, so cute. "Don't worry, I don't bother to do this kind of thing," Shui Wuan said seriously. "Haha, what are you waiting for? Let's get started." Li Wuji laughed and swung the sword with all his strength. The bright sword light flew out as fast as lightning and landed on a hillside of Chimay Mountain. Boom! The explosion sounded violently, and thick smoke and dust billowed. A huge ravine opened up on the small hillside. In the ravine, a man covered in blood was half kneeling on the ground, looking up to the sky and roaring, "We've already done this, what are you waiting for? Let's go together and kill them." The words just fell. Dozens of tyrannical auras rose into the sky, and figures rushed out from the darkness one after another, with various weapons, displaying their own unique skills. Their faces were full of murderous intent, and they were all enraged at this moment, planning to go all out to kill the two biggest threats in front of them. "If you bully someone too much, kill him." The shouts of killing were earth-shattering, and the boiling murderous intent was already rising into the sky. "Well done. Li Wuji became even more excited, and swooped away with the big eagle. The long sword in his hand kept slashing, and the domineering sword energy surged freely. Dang dang dang, the sound of intensive clashes of gold and iron echoed in all directions, mixed with some shrill screams. In midair, the muscular loli was laughing wildly, holding a long knife and using the great eagle's superb speed to fight in and out of the crowd. Both the man and the eagle were as powerful as a rainbow. Senior Shui, I have admired my name for a long time, please give me some advice. On the mountain road, more than a dozen figures fell down. There were men and women. Most of the equipment on them was sophisticated, and a few were rare suits. At this time, they were all fierce and pointed their spearheads at that person. A man in white. Roar. Sensing the hostility around him, the white tiger's face became fierce and he let out a warning growl. The tail behind his butt stood up, obviously entering a fighting state. Shui Wuan's face was expressionless, and he held the hilt of the sword with his right hand and slowly pulled it out. With his move, the temperature within a 10-foot radius dropped sharply, and floating snowflakes appeared out of thin air. Aha! When the sword was completely pulled out, a surge of frost energy was released, and frost quickly formed on the surrounding ground and continued to spread. The sword is about 1 meter long and its icy blue color is dazzling. This is an upgraded version of the Ice Soul Sword. Strictly speaking, it is the Ice Soul Sword. The quality is actually an orange epic weapon. Shui Wuan was holding the Ice Soul Divine Sword, full of confidence, and his cold eyes slowly scanned with a look of disdain. Damn it, his weapons are actually epic. Damn, no wonder you dare to be so arrogant. Why panic? It's not a full set of epic level equipment. The clothes he wears are only sophisticated level. He is obviously heavy on offense and weak on defense. This wave can still be fought. You're right, let's go. In an instant, more than a dozen figures swarmed up, each displaying their special abilities. A sneer escaped from the corner of Shui Wuan's mouth, and he leapt up, dressed in a spotless white robe, with fluttering skirts and long hair. Coupled with the background of fluttering snowflakes, the scene was extremely beautiful. Kyla, I saw him swinging his sword in a violent sweep, and the sword energy surged and spread like a cold wave. Boom boom boom, the cold and chilling sword intent enveloped the entire venue, and the people around were all affected, one by one, pale, frozen to the bone by the cold, and their movements became slow. Not good. Everyone's face changed drastically, and their hearts skipped a beat. Seizing the opportunity, Shui Wuan used the body skills of the upper grade of the earth level. His body shape was unpredictable, real and fake, and his sword was ridiculously fast, and his sword skills were particularly tricky. In just a few seconds, several people suffered a lot of sword wounds and left the encirclement with blood dripping. A man in blue quickly used purification to try to remove the frozen state on his body, but after using it once, he found that as long as he was still in the range, he would be re-added with this freezing effect. He was angry and anxious, and planned to retreat a few steps, but his neck felt cold, and his pupils shrank in horror. Wait. After saying that, he was stabbed in the throat by a sword, and he lost the possibility of treatment. His health bar was instantly emptied, and his whole body turned into a square wooden box. Whoosh! Snowflakes were dancing on the scene, frost covered the ground, and the cold air turned into waves that kept rolling and spreading, which was completely opposite to the other scenery of Chimay Mountain. There's something strange about his sword. Damn, I can't move anymore. Hold on. The crowd suddenly panicked. In a flash, the originally fierce siege was quickly defeated by Shui Wuan with superb means. It was like a piece of frozen bacon, which was skillfully cut and dismembered by a butcher's knife. Swish. At this time, Shui Wuan, relying on the characteristics of the Ice Soul Sword in his hand and his unpredictable body movements, shuttled between the enemy teams with ease. Defense is his shortcoming, but he can use various tactics to maximize his offensive power. Roar. The white tiger was not idle either. He pounced on a sturdy man holding a mace, opened his bloody mouth and bit him madly, and blood foam splashed everywhere. With the cooperation of one man and one tiger, trial participants were killed one after another, and the number of boxes on the ground continued to increase, which can be said to be a great display of divine power. In the sky, sharp cries echoed over the Chimay Mountain. The muscular loli held a long knife and chopped horizontally and vertically, with an excited look on her face. Relying on her flying mount, she was full of mobility and fought back and forth, and was able to escape from danger several times. Don't ride an eagle if you have the guts. Come down and fight us. A woman shouted angrily. Li Wuji laughed a few times, then winked. You blame me for not having an eagle. Shameless. The woman was furious, holding a green bow and aiming at Li Wuji, constantly bending the bow and pulling the string to shoot arrows, and the green arrows shot out like poisonous snakes, trying to bite the target. Want to shoot me? No way. Li Wuji patted the majestic eagle's head, and the eagle flapped its wings and evaded flexibly, avoiding the dense poisonous arrows. During the whole process, more than a dozen trialists chased Li Wuji, but they all suffered because of their slow speed. However, once they relaxed, Li Wuji would kill them back and beat them back, catching them off guard. When they adjusted their state and planned to attack together, Li Wuji saw the right time and drove the eagle to quickly distance themselves, making them so angry that they could only curse. Chasing is not right, not chasing is not right. What is extreme pulling? This is it. Chapter 178, C-178 Three Pillars. Just when those people were about to lose their mentality, a huge ice blue sword light struck. Be careful, get out of the way. Boom, a sword mark about 6 feet wide appeared on the mountain. In this deep dark ravine, thick frost condensed. If ordinary people jumped in, they would be frozen to death. When those people saw this, their scalps were numb with fear, and their eyes looking at the man in white were filled with intense fear. Fellow Taoist, Shui is here to help you. Shui Wuan leapt over with her sword in hand and landed on a tall strange stone. Her white clothes were spotless and her temperament was indifferent and otherworldly. Roar! The roar of the tiger shook all directions. A tall white beast shadow flew over and landed not far from the boulder. It opened its mouth with sharp fangs, its tiger eyes glowed blue, and its furry tiger paws clicked into the ground. The body of this white tiger was slightly arched, as if it was ready to attack. The testers who had besieged them before had peacefully turned into wooden boxes just now. Brother Shui, that's interesting. You and I are invincible together. Li Wuj said shamelessly. Everyone is trembling with anger, how dare you say it? If it weren't for the advantage of Da Diao, would you still be able to drag me down until now? A rare smile appeared at the corner of Shui Wuan's mouth. In his eyes, the muscular Loli's words were very interesting. He had never met such a special girl before. Do it. Those people knew that fighting was inevitable, so they simply turned their spearheads and attacked Shui Wuan. If they killed him, they would gain. Even if they couldn't kill him, it would still be worth it if they could fight. Jing Xiao shooting. Storm star cloud split. Kunshan is broken. Serious fist. Lightning whirlwind strikes. A series of powerful stunts were performed, the lowest being Zon level, the highest being Earth level high level, turning into a raging wave of energy, overwhelming Shui Wuan. Facing the airtight offensive, Shui Wuan did not choose to fight head-on. Instead, he took out a yellow talisman in his hand. After injecting mana, his figure suddenly disappeared. When he appeared again, he was already among the crowd. This is a flash. Shui Wuan held the Ice Soul Divine Sword firmly, her hair waving wildly, and she swung the sword with an expressionless face. Kyla, the cold sword energy surged and raged. Everyone watched helplessly as their bodies were covered with frost, their blood almost stopped flowing, their movements became extremely slow, and their expressions were full of pain. No, this moment, Shui Wuan tossed and turned, sword light drifting among the crowd, and boxes fell to the ground one after another. I'm coming too. In order to show his presence, Li Wuji saw the right moment and slashed several testers to death with his sword. Soon, there were boxes everywhere, and except for the two of them, there was no one left alive. Well, these rats have been dealt with, now it's our turn for a duel. Looking at the man in white, Li Wuji stood on the big eagle with a knife and said in a deep voice. Although the cooperation just now was very tacit, the happy time is always short-lived. Now they are the only ones left in Chimay Mountain, and a fight is inevitable. Is it our turn? Shui Wuan looked at Muscle Loli with a complicated expression, feeling inexplicably sad inside. For some reason, he was unwilling to use his sword against this strange woman. Suddenly, Shui Wuan seemed to notice something. His eyes narrowed slightly, and a cold light about 10 feet long shot out. Humph, you are still hiding so far, get out of here. Aha! Shui Wuan swung his sword and slashed away decisively. A flash of ice blue sword light flew out and landed in a secret corner of the Red Eyebrow Mountain. There was a boom, a brilliant ball of light exploded, smoke and dust billowed, and a mudslide occurred. Haha, interesting. As expected of a swordsman, his acumen is stronger than those who practice swordsmanship. At this time, a joking sneer sounded from the thick smoke. As soon as he finished speaking, the dark purple light expanded, and all the thick smoke was quickly dispersed. In the sunken pit, stood a handsome young man standing with his hands behind his back, covered in dark purple armor, with an evil smile on his lips. Above his head, there are 4 domineering characters. I am the only one. Damn, who are you scolding? Li Wuji recognized the man's identity and shouted dissatisfied. Be careful, this person will be very troublesome. Shui Wuan saw that the dark purple armor worn by the young man was a truly epic suit. He raised his eyebrows slightly and felt a chill in his heart. Shui Wuan knows how powerful the epic equipment is. For example, the Ice Soul Divine Sword in my hand is an epic weapon. It has the property of releasing cold energy, which can slow down people's movements and affect their status. The battle between masters changes rapidly, and anyone who accidentally takes a step slower will be in danger of death. Therefore, Shui Wuan relies on the Ice Soul Divine Sword and has almost no opponents, because every time he uses the sword, he is faster than others. The only shortcoming is that his defense is weak. Fortunately, with the blessing of the Ice Soul Divine Sword and his cunning movement skills, he can make up for this shortcoming as much as possible. But now, the young man in front of him actually has a full set of epic equipment. The threat this brings can be imagined. I originally wanted to lurk in the darkness of Chimay Mountain and watch you guys kill each other so that I could reap the benefits, but you just didn't know what to do and forced me out. As he spoke, the young man wearing dark purple armor raised his hand, and a domineering and powerful Feng Tian painted halberd appeared, igniting a terrifying aura in his hand. This person is Hong Chenny. Hong Chenny arrived at Chimay Mountain very early, but he did not make a public announcement at the first time. Instead, he lay dormant and watched the changes and observed the possible strong enemies. So far, only Shui Wuan can make him pay attention. But this guy is so sharp that he was caught by the opponent before he found an opportunity to launch a sneak attack. In this case, there is no need for him to continue to lie dormant. Your equipment is better than mine, but it does not mean you can beat me. Shui Wuan seemed to have something to rely on, and said word by word. Hong Chenny sneered, we will know after the fight. As he said that, he cast his eyes on the muscular lowly and said meaningfully, you will not help him later, will you? He and Li Wuji were the only ones who knew each other's details. If the other party helped Shui Wuan at this critical moment, it would be a betrayal. If he returned to the real world, he would settle the score later. Li Wuji knew what Hong Chenny meant, but he could not deal with Shui Wuan. At this moment, he looked embarrassed and fell silent for a while. Don't threaten her. Shui Wuan was furious and warned. Huh. Hong Chenny was stunned, looking at the muscular Lolita that Li Wuji had transformed into, and then at the emotional man in white. Hong Chenny's expression suddenly became strange. I have seen many storms along the way, but I have never seen someone with such a unique taste. What kind of alternative hobby is this? It seems that you are quite protective of her. Do you know who she is? Hong Chenny smiled playfully, wanting to see what kind of expression Shui Wuan would have when he knew the truth. Shui Wuan's expression changed, and he asked in surprise, do you know her identity? Shut up. A shocking roar. The muscular Lolita was so angry that she pointed a knife at the young man, and her emotions were almost out of control and roared, if you dare to talk nonsense again, I will chop you to death. I will never stop fighting with you in this life. With this tone and expression, I thought she was going to eat someone. Hong Chenny frowned. What he hated most in his life was being threatened. However, seeing the other party's overreaction, considering his identity and ability, he reluctantly swallowed his anger. But for the sake of face, Hong Chenny still had to fight for it. HMPH, I didn't say anything. You don't need to say harsh words. Do you really think I'm afraid of you? Hearing this, the muscular lowly stared angrily, breathing heavily, and her pectoralis major muscles also rose and fell. She gritted her teeth and said, I emphasize again, don't challenge my bottom line. Li Wuji was angry and anxious. If his true identity was exposed, how could he hold his head up in the future? He would be regarded as a big pervert. If he really became the legendary sword god in the future, this would be a stain that could not be washed away, and it would be a complete black history. Therefore, Li Wuji warned Hong Chenny and even wanted to kill her for a while, wanting to wipe her out from the root. Shui Wuan raised his eyebrows, and intuitively judged that the two people seemed to know each other. If it weren't for the position factor, he really wanted to ask Hong Chenny to reveal the identity of the muscle loli, because he had never seen such a special girl and wanted to get to know her. Humph, who are you trying to scare? If you have the guts, challenge me later. Hong Chenny said. Li Wuji knew that the other party had given him a ladder, and his excitement calmed down a little. He said, okay, I'll wait. As soon as these words came out, it showed that he would not help Shui Wuan and let the two sides fight alone. After all, in the real world, he and Hong Chenny were from the same school. Shui Wuan didn't mind, raised his sword and pointed it at the young man, and said in a deep voice, then just watch how I kill this boy. The tone revealed a sense of dominance, which would make many young girls fall for him. If it were any other little girl, her heart would surely beat faster, her cheeks would turn red, and she would say something like, "Be careful." But the muscle loli looked impatient, waved her hands and shouted, "If you can do it, just do it, see what you can do." Li Wuji was very depressed. Why was this man pretending in front of him? Shui Wuan almost suspected that he had heard it wrong, and his expression was a little stiff. Why did it feel different from what he imagined? Under normal circumstances, shouldn't you shout to be careful? Sure enough, this girl is different from others, not at all pretentious, and the main point is real. Thinking of this, Shui Wuan's liking for the muscle loli deepened. Chapter 179. C-179 Li Wuji, my sculpture exploded. Hong Chenny pursed his lower lip, looking very uncomfortable. No, we have to start fighting quickly, otherwise he will really laugh. If he laughs while fighting, his fighting power will be very poor. Just as he raised the Fang Tian Hua Ji and prepared to charge, a rumbling explosion suddenly came from a distance, and a large area of thick clouds was shattered. Swish, a golden figure that looked like a human but not a human came through the air and arrived above Chimay Mountain with a powerful posture. There were 2 dragon horns on his forehead, his hair was scattered on his shoulders, his handsome face was full of confidence and calmness, his hands were behind his back, a tail was swinging slowly, his whole body was filled with terrifying energy, even the surrounding void was distorted, showing a faint ripple shape. There were 6 big characters on his head, as if to announce to the world, I have the appearance of becoming an immortal. The person who came was Chen Xiao. Tisk tisk, now there are only a few of you left. Although you don't let me experience the fun of killing people, I think it will be a good experience to get rid of the strongest people at present. A trace of cruelty appeared at the corner of Chen Xiao's mouth, and he treated these 3 people as prey to be slaughtered at will. Fuck, how did you do this? Li Wuji was stunned. Compared with the opponent's half-man and half-dragon cool style, he was killed instantly riding an eagle. It's useless even if his eagle is big. Is this caused by some kind of martial arts? Shui Wuan asked in surprise. He could feel that the opponent had a powerful force that could subvert the whole scene. But the question is, how did he get this power? Who are you? Hong Chenny narrowed his eyes, holding the Fang Tian Hua Ji in his hand and aiming at the figure, with a sense of crisis in his heart. You ask me who I am? Then I will tell you mercifully that I am the son of destiny who will inherit the fairy island. Chen Xiao's expression was arrogant. As soon as he finished speaking, the sky was filled with strong winds, lightning and thunder. Hong Chenny's face changed, and he sneered, "You are too arrogant, do you really think you are invincible?" "Yes, this saint is invincible. Do you have any objections?" Chen Xiao looked at him with disdain. He was full of confidence after obtaining the power of the dragon, and he said without any scruples. Hong Chenny's face was gloomy, "Then I will wake you up." As he said that, he turned his head and looked at Shui Wuan seriously and said, "Let's just join forces to deal with this person first." "I think it's okay. This guy's power is very strange," Li Wuji suggested. After taking a look at the muscular loli, Shui Wuan retracted his gaze and said coldly, "That's what I meant." "Ha ha ha, well, you all come on, I'm in a hurry." Seeing that the 3 were going to join forces, Chen Xiao's expression was full of excitement, and his aura surged. Boom, the wind and clouds were unpredictable, and muffled thunders came from the depths of the sky. Kill, the purple flame wings behind Hong Chenny flapped, raising a vast hot airflow, rushing towards Chen Xiao like a fleeting light. The Fang Tian Hua Ji in his hand swept violently, and the dark purple halberd blade was extremely terrifying, as if it was going to cut most of the sky. Bang, a dazzling ball of light bloomed. Hong Chenny raised a complacent arc at the corner of his mouth. After all, this was a full-strength attack of an epic weapon, which could be said to be extremely powerful. The arrogant guy might be seriously injured. Shui Wuan frowned. If it were him facing this move, he would definitely not be able to escape unscathed. As a result, when the light ball gradually disappeared, a figure that looked like a human but not a human still stood, with a mocking smile on the corner of his mouth. "That's it," Chen Xiao flashed, and his palm slapped it fiercely. If you look closely, you will find that his hand has turned into a dragon claw, majestic and awe-inspiring. What? Hong Chenny was shocked. He didn't expect that the other party was actually unscathed. The dragon claw reached out fiercely, and collided with Fang Tian Hua Ji, releasing a terrifying wave that shook the space. Hong Chenny's mouth was full of blood, and there was a look of disbelief in his eyes. What kind of power is this? Even epic weapons have to bow down. Swish, Seeing that the situation was not right, Shui Wuan gathered his power and gathered it in the Bingpo divine sword. A touch of ice blue sword light flew into the sky, wrapped in the violent power of wind and snow. Chen Xiao wanted to kill this person immediately, but when the rhythm was interrupted by this sudden attack, his movements suddenly became a little slower. Hong Chenyi took the opportunity to distance himself from him, with a strong fear in his eyes, and asked, "Where did you get your power from?" "That's right, why can you transform?" "We can't." Li Wuji was full of resentment, and his ego was outdone. "I've said it before, I'm the son of destiny, destined to inherit the heritage of the fallen fairy island, how dare you bastards compare with me?" Chen Xiao raised his hand to destroy the ice blue sword light, his attitude was high and his tone was arrogant. Fuck him." Li Wuji couldn't stand this kind of superior face, so angry that he drove the eagle to sprint, swung his knife and slashed fiercely. Swish, the sword light was as bright as a divine punishment, this was a low-grade combat skill of the heavenly rank. It was obvious that Li Wuji had been hiding his weakness, and now he was just forced out by Chen Xiao. "The knife can break, the blood can flow, you kid must die for me." In the eyes of everyone, this muscular lowly riding the eagle roared emotionally. "HMPH, you ugly bastard, you dare to get close to this saint." Chen Xiao felt disgusted by the muscular Lolita, which made him feel uncomfortable. At this moment, he stretched out his dragon claws with disgust on his face and grabbed the blade light that was comparable to divine punishment. Boom! The next second, the brilliant blade light was shattered. Li Wuji only felt a powerful force bursting out in front of him, and his body flew backwards, spurting blood. Seeing his master being knocked away, the eagle flapped its wings angrily, releasing countless sharp feathers to sweep towards Chen Xiao. "A flat-haired beast dares to be presumptuous in front of me." Chen Xiao sneered and waved his hand to shatter thousands of feathers. As he raised his hand, a golden dragon claw about 3 feet wide was formed, exuding a terrifying dragon power, and quickly grabbed the eagle. The eagle was enveloped by the dragon power and lost its fighting power in an instant. It let the dragon claw grab its palm, and its eyes were full of despair and fear. Bang! The dragon claw clenched violently, and the mighty eagle was caught and exploded in the air. Seeing this, Li Wuji's eyes were red and bloody. My eagle exploded. My condolences." Seeing the muscular lowly in grief and anger, Shui Wuan couldn't help but comfort her. "That's right, your eagle was blown up by me, ha ha ha." Chen Xiao was very proud and happy. "My eagle is gone, you made my eagle gone. I will kill you." Even though he knew that it was in the virtual world, Li Wuji had already formed a deep friendship with the eagle along the way. When he saw his eagle being blown up, his eyes were red, as if he was going to turn into a demon and crush the sky. Swish! Li Wuji was overwhelmed by anger, and rushed forward with a knife, fearless of death, determined to avenge his eagle. "Don't be impulsive," Hong Chenyi reminded him quickly. But it was too late. Chen Xiao sneered and leaned over to rush forward, and his long dragon tail swept across the sky like a comet. Bang! Li Wuji was whipped high up, bleeding profusely. After all, he didn't have the blood of the mad demon here, so his power was extremely limited. Whoosh! Chen Xiao flashed over, watching the muscular lowly approaching with a playful look, and raised his dragon claws to give a fatal blow. Suddenly, Li Wuji gritted his teeth, a yellow talisman appeared in his hand, injected with mana, and disappeared out of thin air. At the critical moment, he performed a flash and went around behind Chen Xiao. Chen Xiao noticed something was wrong, and saw 8 talismans thrown at him, all bursting with mysterious light. 6 were weak, 2 were ignited, and all hit. Feeling the negative effects on his body, Chen Xiao was immediately furious, thinking that he was fooled by this woman, and swung his claws through the chest of the muscular lowly, splashing a large flower of blood. "You too, avenge my big eagle!" Li Wuji shouted hysterically. "Die!" Chen Xiao was very angry and exerted force on his hands. Bang! The muscular lowly was killed and turned into a square box and fell to the ground. No! Shui Wuan looked up to the sky and howled, with snowflakes flying around him and the north wind whistling. In a rage, he held the Bingpo divine sword in his hand and used swordsmanship to fly away, as if he had turned into an ice and snow dragon. A blizzard was falling in the world, as if to bury the Chimay mountain. This is a top-grade skill of the heavenly rank, and it is also Shui Wuan's greatest reliance. He wants to avenge Li Wuji and his eagle. Now, Hong Chenyi's eyes burst into a brilliant light. The advantage created by his teammates before their death must be firmly grasped. Swish! He mobilized all his mana to infuse the Fang Tian Hua Ji in his hand, and shot out a blood-colored light column about 10 feet wide, enveloping Chen Xiao with a breath of destruction. A mid-grade skill of the heavenly rank, the destruction ray. Damn it! At this moment, Chen Xiao, whose state suddenly dropped, felt the danger and did not dare to continue to act recklessly. He was very alert to deal with the two terrifying attacks. Boom! A blazing and dazzling ball of light bloomed in the sky, and a vast energy airflow raged in all directions. The entire Chimay mountain trembled violently, the surface and the mountain were cracking, the sand and dust rolled, and countless gravel fell. The scene was like a natural disaster. Chapter 180. C-180 Legend of Hot Blood, Come and Kill Me If You Are a Brother. Chen Xiao, whose condition had dropped significantly, was attacked by two powerful forces at the same time. He felt that his whole body was squeezed crazily, and his internal organs were in pain as if they were burned. A stream of blood flowed from his mouth, and his golden vertical pupils were shocked and angry. You have completely angered me. A roar containing rage came out of his mouth, faintly mixed with the majestic dragon roar, shaking the sky. Chen Xiao bit his back teeth tightly and summoned all the dragon power in his body. In an instant, his whole body burst into a blazing brilliance, and hard dragon scales quickly emerged on his skin, shining with red gold precious light. With dragon horns on his head, dragon armor on his body, and limbs turned into dragon claws, there was a dragon tail swinging behind him. He was simply a real little dragon man. After releasing the pure dragon power, Chen Xiao's momentum was even stronger and more terrifying than before. Boom! The air exploded, waves of air surged, and the two surging forces were directly offset. What? Hong Chenyi's face changed drastically, looking at the dragon figure in disbelief. This, Shui Wuan's eyelids twitched wildly, and his heart was in turmoil. Without relying on equipment or skills, where does this person's power come from? The sky was dim and the airflow was turbulent. In the void, Chen Xiao's eyes were like lightning, standing with his hands behind his back, and his aura was ancient and powerful, like an ancient dragon descending. Facing the pressure of this dragon, all the monsters on this island would half kneel on the ground when they saw him, and respectfully said, "See you, Dragon King." In the face of absolute power, any resistance and strategy are futile. Chen Xiao glanced at the wooden box that Li Wuji turned into after his death, and looked at the other two with a playful look, raised his hand to condense a huge black and white light ball, and then split into two, flying away as if with a spirit. Roar! The high-pitched dragon roar echoed in the valley. The black light turned into a black dragon, and the white light turned into a white dragon. The two giant dragons, one black and one white, circled their 1,000-meter-long bodies and swung their tails, flying towards Hong Chenyi and Shui Wuan. Not good. The two people's hearts sank to the bottom of the valley. The big move they just used consumed too much mana, and now they had no time to recover and had to fight hastily. They were in a desperate situation. Boom! After a short fight, Hong Chenyi and Shui Wuan were quickly defeated and were hit by a black and white dragon to the foot of the mountain, making a deafening explosion. Countless gravel rolled down, and the smoke spread like a wave. The scene was very scary. Daoyu, I'm sorry, I didn't avenge you and your eagle, the man in white clothes, who was covered in blood and had disheveled hair, murmured miserably. After that, Shui Wuan's head drooped weakly, and his body turned into a square wooden box. Before he died, he was still thinking about the smiles and frowns of the muscled lowly. After all, Shui Wuan's body protection equipment was only of the excellent level. After enduring such an attack, there was no possibility of survival. On the cliff, the white tiger who witnessed everything cried out in grief, feeling sad for the death of his master. Ahem, not far away, a broken halberd was inserted diagonally into the ground, and a bloody young figure half knelt on the ground. His epic equipment was seriously damaged, but he barely saved his life. Looking at the powerful figure in the sky that was comparable to the Dragon King, Hong Chenyi's face was extremely ugly, and his heart was full of strong unwillingness. Damn it, is this great immortal fate going to belong to him this time? Hong Chenyi felt extremely annoyed and gnashed his teeth in anger. This is the inheritance of a suspected top immortal. But now, it is extremely far away. Ahahaha, the rampant laughter echoed over Chimay Mountain, and Chen Xiao enjoyed this invincible feeling very much. For this time, the inheritance of the fallen immortal island, he now feels that it is within his reach. After all the suffering comes happiness, after all the suffering comes happiness. Chen Xiao thought of the sins he had suffered before, and combined with the fortune that was about to turn over, he couldn't help but spread his arms, and the smile on his face became even more intense. All enemies are stepping stones for this saint. Now is the best proof. When this saint obtains the immortal fate, he will be able to soar into the sky, and the humiliation he once suffered will be returned 1,000 times. As long as I kill you, I will be the final winner. Chen Xiao had a cruel smile on his lips, slowly stretched out a finger, and released a terrifying breath. Hong Chenny felt cold all over, and the shadow of death enveloped his heart. But he couldn't resist, because the gap in strength was too big, and he could only watch himself being killed. At this time, the death energy near Chimay Mountain was already close at hand. Except for this area, other places had long been swallowed and covered by the death energy, and became a dark hell. Da da da. Suddenly, the rhythmic sound of donkey hoofs sounded. Following the sound, it was a gray donkey, with eyes wide open and a big tongue slit out, trying to touch the carrot shaking in front of it. On its body, there was a bald head and a funny-looking young man sitting cross-legged, holding a fishing rod and tying carrots in his hand, inducing the donkey to keep moving forward. Above his head, a line of words was particularly eye-catching: invincible, so lonely. Huh, why is there a third trialer? Seeing this strange combination, Chen Xiao raised his eyebrows. It turned out that he was too proud just now and didn't notice the remaining number of people shown on the map. It's the weirdo on the ferry boat before. Hong Chenny narrowed his eyes slightly. The other party's mean temperament gave him a familiar feeling for some reason. Could it be? Hong Chenny shook his head. Even if he was the man, showing up now would be no different from committing suicide. After all, after the fierce battle just now, Hong Chenny had already determined that Chen Xiao was the final winner. In the face of absolute power, what could he fight with? Fortunately, it's still in time. Yi Junlin turned his head and looked at the back shrouded by death, and said with lingering fear. Is this Chimay Mountain? Yi Junlin looked around curiously. Chimay Mountain was affected by the war and was already in ruins. He continued to scan and saw the purple-clad young man who was lingering on, and the domineering figure in the sky. Wow, there are little dragons in this game. Yi Junlin looked at Chen Xiao's dragon form and exclaimed. Get out. Hearing this name, Chen Xiao angrily scolded, what little dragon? Call me Lord Dragon King. Looking at the bald man's funny face and the offensive intention just now, Chen Xiao felt very angry. Moreover, this guy gave him a very familiar feeling, and this feeling was very annoying. No way, you really think you are the Dragon King after changing your skin? The bald man yelled, and with this face and the name on his head, he undoubtedly instantly pulled the taunting to the maximum. Hearing this, Chen Xiao's eyes twitched, his face was as gloomy as water. This guy was thousands of times more hateful than the enemy he had met before. You dog-like thing, you die. Chen Xiao was furious and stretched out his dragon claws with all his strength to slap. Rumble, the dragon claws were like a giant palm holding up the sky, lingering with the materialized golden dragon phantom, and slapped the bald man with great terrifying pressure. The bald man was motionless, as if he was scared silly. Hey, I knew it, Hong Chenny sighed, knowing that the overall situation was decided. Die. Chen Xiao's expression was ferocious, and he felt very happy in his heart, as if he had vented his anger fiercely. Swish. At this moment, the golden and fierce blade shone through the sky, piercing through the vast sky, cutting off the sky on both sides, revealing an indescribable terrifying crack, as if to break through the limit of this world. Ah! Chen Xiao retracted his hand as if he was electrocuted, his palm was bloody and almost cut off, and he was scared for a while. When he looked again, his eyes were full of fear. What kind of weapon is this? The knife just now made him feel the threat of death, and even stimulated the fear hidden in his blood. This is incredible. You have to know that he is a man who has obtained the power of the dragon. What else on this island can threaten him? Hiss. Seeing the sudden change, Hong Chenny took a deep breath, his face full of shock. In the field of vision, the bald man riding on the donkey held a mighty and domineering sword in his hand. The handle was inlaid with dragon carvings, and the blade shone with a golden luster, filled with a domineering atmosphere that cut through the heavens. Have you played Legend? Have you heard of the dragon-slaying sword? Yi Junlin held the dragon-slaying sword in his hand, full of momentum, and said in a loud voice, I am Za Wei, if you are a brother, come and chop me. Window. _tabula equals window. _tabula. Push mode. Thumbs feed 01. Container. Tabula below article thumbnail, 300 times 250 feet. Placement. Below article thumbnail 300 times 250 feet. Target _type. Mix.